right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Frazier. I'm here with my co-host, Kenny. And today we have a special guest returning to the podcast, friend of the show, a friend of ours, actually, a true hero, as some of you may know him, and Cairo to all of our, inner circle. So yeah, we are back. It's the week after nationals. It's yeah, we we both got our voices fucked up from nationals because we probably both talked to a lot of people. So I'm just going to say this right now. Forgive me. My voice still hasn't returned to 100%. It was way worse yesterday when I put out that YouTube video. I think it's gotten a lot better now. But Cairo's voice has deteriorated today. And so
I just want to say, I won't give any specifics unless Frazier wants to, but tomorrow night, he's not going to give his voice any fucking favors.
Yeah, that's actually just true. I'm going to the Beyonce concert tomorrow night, Wednesday, and yeah, I mean, I'm going to be on the floor. I'm definitely going to lose my voice again. I don't know if there will ever be a podcast again after tomorrow. Like, there's a chance that there will never be another IMNerd podcast because I might permanently Ariel style lose my voice forever. Like, that might just be a thing. So,
it's right. Part of the hive.
Part of the hive. That's right. So, okay, where do we even start, Cairo? Because you came all the way from Korea. I know that this was like a really big deal for both of us. We both really wanted to do this event, and you had to make sacrifices to even get here. So why don't we just start there then?
It's funny because literally every single tournament that I've participated in, whether it be online or IRL, I didn't want to do them. Not a single one of them. Because I always said I don't want to wake up this early, because it's 2 a.m. in Korea for the online tournaments. Or I'd be like, I don't know if I should come because the ticket from Korea to America is very expensive. And I wasn't sure if, it would be worth it. Because imagine spending like $1,300 just to go like O2 drop or like even to do moderately okay,
right,
but ultimately not to make the top 8. It was just a waste of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if you
nobody cares about the person who almost made it,
That's true.
And it's unfortunate, right? But it's the sad reality. So it's like I was really, really between like a rock and a hard place when it came to the decision of whether or not to attend the event. But then I was just like, you know what? I love Yugioh so much. Plus, it's an excuse to see my family if things don't go right. So let me just roll with it. And things wound up working out in my favor. So at the end of the day, I feel as though I made the right decision. But of course, at the time, it was uncertain whether or not it was a good investment to just pretty much buy a spontaneous trip to America. And, I'm glad I did it. Everything paid off. And I have shown that I'm not only a threat online because I've topped several tournaments online. And now I show even in paper, even in person, like a true hero. Cairo is still out here doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. This was a good showing. It's actually crazy to me every time I travel to events with my friends because there's always multiple of us in the top cut, like every single time. Like even going back to the days of me traveling with McCabe or Silverman or McCabe and Silverman, it just reminds me of that time in my life where I was hyper competitive and going to literally every single event. And like, it was never just me by myself in the top cut ever. It was always like, these two people in the car, or these two people in the hotel or whatever. And that is just a really cool feeling, especially when you guys end up on opposite sides of the bracket, which we actually did.
Right.
So obviously you and I wanted to have the dream grand finals where it's like me and you, and both of us only really lost to the winner of the whole tournament. It was definitely his day. He played really well. And, and Yugioh always say, you have to be lucky to win no matter what. You also should be good, and it's better if you are. But anyone who's ever won anything ever, including myself, you need to have some luck that day, and it needs to also be well placed, and you need to be good enough to put yourself in a position where your luck matters, and that's what good players do. And Matt Kalinda 100% did all of those things, and he made the best of it, so he was able to take the whole thing down. But before that happened, when it was top 8, you and I were just like, yo, we're on opposite sides, because McCabe knows how to do the bracket math stuff. So he was there, and I know nothing about how to do a bracket. All I know is that first place 8th and second place 7th, and I could do that. Like, that's just, and then after that, don't talk to me after that, because I have no idea what happens after that. In fact, after I won top 8, I asked the judge, I was like, yo, who do I have to play after this? Because there was two tables playing after that. Me and Cairo were done. So both me and Cairo were just waiting for our next opponent. And I asked the judge, and he was like, oh, I can't tell you that, which I don't even think that that's true. Like, I'm pretty sure that's just not true. But because you can also just do it. Like, some people, like McCabe, he looked at the top 8 standings, and he was like, you played the winner of that one. And so me and Cairo were watching the wrong match. So we both switched and went to watch the other match. But the dream was obviously to have both of us in grand finals, and I fell a little short. But that's okay because we still made top 4. And for me, this was like a return to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, especially because I haven't played in a Konami event in 6 years. I think it's been at least 6 years. So for me, this was like, can I still do this super long tournament that's 2 days? You know, all of the fixings, right? Like it was everything. It was plenty of Konami judges, obscure rulings, drama.
I'll definitely say, like, in terms of this tournament, it was a gauntlet, right? Because at the end of the day, the people who really made it, with the exception of the winner, right, which is crazy, they went 8-1. That's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! To go 8-1. It's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
And you were talking about earlier how, like, whenever you used to go to events in the past, it wouldn't just be you, right? It would be multiple people that you travel with.
Yeah.
And actually, this kind of brings, I guess, to like a sad story, but like, you know, shout outs to everyone we were there with, right? Vinny, Corey, Adam, right? Like everyone. But I remember that Adam Corey, he started off day 1, 5-0, 5-0. And then on round 6, he lost, right? So he started, you know, getting a little kind of depressed because he said that he always goes through this experience where it's like he does well in the beginning and then he loses 2 straight. And at the time, I was giving him like a lot of words of encouragement. I was like, don't worry, like you're going to do well. Like you're not going to lose 2 times in a row. Like I believe in you that you're going to come in top 8 for this event. And he doesn't really take my word to heart and he still has some doubt within him. And then the next round, round 7, he has to play against me.
Oh no.
And yeah,
that was
like I just couldn't believe it.
I
honestly just couldn't believe it.
I was, you know, giving you some advice and pepping you up, but son, I got to take you out back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is wild because you were really helping him. So Adam, I love Adam.
That does suck.
I love Adam a lot. It's interesting. On Friday, he was going through a crisis, like a fucking personal crisis. This man was talking about he needed Dark Illusions for his Blackwing deck. Then he wanted to play frogs. He was talking about like, oh, do you have soul exchanges? And I looked at him, I said, why do you want soul exchange? Because he's a Vayu Turbo or Blackwing player. So I was like, why do you want soul exchange? And he was like, oh, I'm thinking about running frogs. And I was like, so I do have extra soul exchanges. I don't think I'm going to give them to you though, because I don't want you to play frogs. I just don't think that that's a good idea to, at the last minute, try to pivot to a deck like that. And especially one that you're not that familiar with playing. Like, I don't know how much experience he has. I assume it's not a lot because Adam doesn't really strike me as a dueling book person. So if you're trying to pick up that deck on the fly, it is not. I don't know who lied to you, but that deck is not easy to just pick up and play. It is certainly going to be prone to misplays, and Blackwings and Vayu are much simpler and straightforward. So I was like, yeah, I don't agree with you switching to this deck. And I told him that also this Dark Illusions nonsense, please don't do that. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just, this is a locked format. Edison is a closed environment. And sure, Edison does go through changes and all that stuff, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel and start doing crazy things to like have success. Sure, people have done things to, you know, shake things up or shake the table or whatever. But like at the end of the day, the decks that are still winning, right? They're the decks that you've seen before. Like the decks that are winning the tournaments are decks that you've seen before. So they don't need all this crazy spice and all that stuff to do well. And I'm just not a big fan of not well tested ideas in your own ballpark. Like something where you're like, oh, I have an idea that I want to try this, and I'm not really sure how it's going to pan out. Like for me, I do stuff like that, but I'm basing it off of a ton of fucking Yu-Gi-Oh experience. And I'm also more willing to throw away tournaments than a lot of other people. Like on Friday, I played Dragon Turbo just for memes. There was like a Friday tournament that they had. It was like 40 people. And I played Dragon Turbo with no expectation that I was actually going to do well. But I was like, what if it's just my day? And I'm at the casino and I'm just running hot. And if I run hot, it could be your day. It could be your day. And if I run hot with that deck, it's OD over for everybody. So I was like, you know what?
It was just someone's day, what, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
I mean, yeah,
literally.
Why can't it be yours?
He ran hot on me. Like he wasn't supposed to anyway.
He ran hot on everybody though. Like if you look at those replays, that man ran that deck is fucking garbage, by the way. That shit ran so hot that I honestly think that he should go to the casino actually and put it all on black, because Dragon Turbo, so Hydro Pump actually played it this weekend at the in real life Ultimate Time Wizard tournament. And again, it is just not good. Like when you lose, it's going to be not because of anything you did wrong. It's just going to be because your deck shat on you and decided that you're not going to play this game. And it's every time you lose with it, it's going to be that. And that is like the worst feeling, to just have your deck literally crap out on you, for you to be eliminated. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Cairo?
I mean, you were just talking about like how people go through deck crises, right?
Yeah.
And as you know, I was also going through the exact same thing. And at that local that you were just talking about where you were playing Dragon Turbo, I was like, Frazier, I'm going to play Diva Hero. And I was like, if Diva Hero fails me, I'm not going to play it for the event.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play Black Wings. And things panned out. I got second place at that local.
Sort of.
And then you just yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so we go to this Friday night tournament, right? It's at some local that's new. And I was mad at Cairo a week ago for even saying that he would play Black Wings for nationals, because in my head, sure, you just topped RBET with Black Wings or whatever, but like, one, I don't believe it. Like, Black Wings is one of those decks that, like, it's another run hot deck. Like, if you open up Whirlwind a lot and things go your way, like, you're just going to steamroll. And I watched a lot of Cairo's games at RBET, and it was literally, and he admitted this too, it was like, I opened up Whirlwind like a fucking madman. So I was like, one, that's problematic because that's not going to happen in real life, at least not twice, right? The second part is Diva Hero has been by far the most successful deck for you, and there's no reason for the biggest tournament that you're ever going to play in to like trade on it now after all it's done for you. Like, that just seems crazy to me. To at the finish line, you're like, all right, Moses, you can't come in, even though you've led these people for 40 years to the promised land. It's like, you don't even get to fucking see it. That's how I was like, that's insane. So when our mutual friend Gary told me that Cairo he said, can you give this Blackwing deck to Cairo? And I was like, why? He's like, oh, because he's going to play it for nationals. I was like, well, two things. One, I'll take the deck with me to nationals. I will not give it to him. I was like, I think this is absolutely insane. I'm going to talk to him about this too, but I was like, I think it's absolutely insane to like even consider playing Black Wings. I don't care what happened last week at RBET. That is just a crazy thing to me, because Diva Hero is a deck that is actually super hard to side against. And Black Wings is a deck that is super easy to side against. And a lot of people are prepared for Black Wings. People are not prepared for Diva Hero, even right now. Like, Diva Hero is a very difficult deck to side against. It has a lot of strengths. I upgraded it to S tier on my last tier list. Like, it has a lot going for it. And Cairo is the best player in the world with Diva Hero right now. Like, it's not even close. Like, there's no one better than him.
In terms of siding, I'd argue that how hard it is to side against, I wouldn't know as well as you know, obviously. But I'd also argue that regardless how hard it is to side against, just like you already said, straight up less people are preparing for it. Like, people aren't prepared because not a lot of people play Diva Hero. Like, when you look at the statistics,
that used to be the case.
Well, yeah. But it's starting to rise. It's starting to rise back up thanks to someone.
Two decks are actually well represented now that were not well represented before. So Hero Frogs, which actually took the most spots in top 8. I didn't even know this, by the way. I literally did not know until we were driving home. Hero Frogs took 3 out of 8 spots, which I didn't even know that there were that many. Like, I saw people playing Hero Frogs as I was walking around, but in my head, I saw Six Samurais too, right? So like, I didn't think
that's so wild. Six Samurais is definitely somebody that was like, oh, I want to go back and play Edison format.
Well, there was this one guy who was playing Six Sams, and he was full sending it. He actually beat my teammate Cam Saunders round 1, and we walked over to the game, and he had Gateway, United in the back row with a field full of Six Samurais just straight up Dougieing on this man. And I just walked away because I was like, I can't be here for this. This is basically one of those like gore porn, like it's just like a fucking murder scene.
That's like, I mean, we just watched that when we watched Hydro Pump get Dougie'd on by the fucking assault mode Stardust Dragon.
Yes, literally gore. So I was like, I don't want to watch this. This is some fucked up shit to see. So I walked away from that. But back to the point. So yeah, you were correct at one point that Diva Hero wasn't well represented in the format. A lot of people were not playing it. Cairo actually played against like 4 other Diva Hero players, maybe more. Yeah, but wild. At least 4, right?
Yeah, I mean, in my tournament report, I played against 3 or 4 different Diva Hero mirror match. And that doesn't even count when I was walking around, because I never went in the time, ever.
Yeah.
I finished very early.
Good on you. Good on. I need more people to be like you, Cairo. This fucking going all the time bullshit.
And I'd walk around and I'd try to see who's playing what and what decks are being represented. And there were so many Diva Hero players.
Yep.
It was crazy.
So I played against a couple too. I played against 2 of them, And Diva Hero was all around. And yeah, go ahead.
It's cool. It's kind of cool when you like if you track the story of Edison format, because obviously there's what won Edison. So people get into the format trying to play that deck. The Dandelion deck.
Yeah,
and then
that's how disrespected that deck is at this point.
But then the format kind of becomes for a period of time like Diva Hero format.
Yeah,
like everybody thinks like Diva Hero. Yeah, when we got into it,
Diva Hero was running fucking Edison format last year.
Yeah, it was like the highest represented deck, and then it has a fall off, and then people start straight disrespecting it, saying it's bad and it's not that good, and blah blah blah. And
in
then
my one video, I have basically the stats. And my one video, I have the stats. Literally, no one topped with the deck for over a year. Literally over a year. No one.
You started playing with it again, right?
That's exactly right. I was the first one to top with the deck in a year. And when I say top, I refer to top 8. Like if you came in like 12th place, like that's not.
Yeah, I do not. All those top 12s and all that, I'll pass.
Yeah,
y'all can hold those. It's top 8 or bust. Like unless the tournament is. So for me, it's like if it's cut the top 16, right? Then I'll say top 16. But if it's cut the top 12, I don't understand why you would be cutting to 12. Like why are 4 people getting a bye and then 8 people are just like playing it out? Weird, yeah, that's just like not a thing. And I don't know who came up with that idea, but it's not a good one. And I really don't like that. So I wish they would stop doing that. Because your placement, your seeding is completely luck based. So right, look, I went X and 1 right at a tournament, and I got like 5th or 6th place, being X and 1. At no fault of my own. Like there was nothing that I could have done to go. Like it's based on who your tiebreakers. It's based on your tiebreakers. But you have no control over who you're going to play. So that is annoying as fuck to be like, well, I got the same record as these other 3 or 4 people who are 1st to 4th seed, but because like the tiebreakers that you guys calculated, I am now having to play for my spot in top 8 when I was originally just in top 8. Like that's
so weird.
That's just insane to me. So I'm like, I do not like that at all. They like top 16 or top 8. Like none of this top 12 nonsense. Like just do one way or the other. I don't know why people are trying to reinvent the wheel.
If you're cutting that, there's absolutely no reason once you cut to a top, anybody should be getting a buy.
Yes,
like, there should be no buys.
Yeah, like why are we doing buys in top cut? Like that is actually, the more I talk about it, the more insane it sounds. The more like I'm thinking about it more and more. I'm like, why are we doing this? So the same way, like, I love ARG and everything like that, but they had this one rule that was not okay for Yu-Gi-Oh, where when you topped a ARG, and it wasn't always like this, but towards the end of the life of ARGs, they had it where depending on who finished higher in Swiss, they got to choose who went first in the duel. In game 1. Yeah. So
that is crazy.
Yes. And like, think about Yu-Gi-Oh, right? You know how much of a game of variance Yu-Gi-Oh is. So off the bat, that is an extreme what do you want to call it? An extreme like advantage. There you go. That's an extreme advantage to have, to be like, I'm going first because I placed higher to you. So in this it goes all the way down to the end of the tournament. So basically, let's say
it's also definitely some win more shit. Like
yes, it's ignorant as fuck. So like if you finish 8th and somebody finished 31st in top 32, like you just get to go first. And then as the tournament goes on, unless you at 8th place play against somebody who has a lower seeding you're going to go first the entire top cut.
That is, that's also crazy. And speaking of win more, like if you're first in the seeding, then it's like your top run is kind of illegitimate in a way, because you got to choose to go first in every single game there. You know what I mean? Like,
and you're playing the worst person technically because you playing 32nd.
Yeah, like that's actually so crazy.
Yeah. So I don't like a lot of the changes to just things that have already been well established, and
people just works.
There are other things that people complain about that are legitimate. Right, about Yu-Gi-Oh, like there are plenty of things to complain about Yu-Gi-Oh, and one of the things that I've never really heard people complain about is like, oh, why was this event top 16 cut? Right, like I've never, like that's not one of the things that the community complains about, is like, why is it top 16? Like that's not one of them. So I don't know why that is something that's being changed. There's other things that we can change, like how much time is in a round, the time rules themselves, stuff like that. Like there are things that we can change that are like everybody would agree, or most people would agree that this is a good change. But like again, some of this stuff is just I don't really get it.
I mean, the time rules for nationals, for those of you who don't know, were terrible. They were absolutely terrible. Even though we played in an Edison event.
That's why Cairo was like, I'm not going in the time.
They were modern turn rules, which means end of phase. Time's called on your turn, and then whatever phase. So if you're in main phase, you cannot proceed to go to battle phase.
That's like You got to use, at the very least, if you're not going to make it better, you got to use the time rules of the time of that format, just like how you use the rulings of that format, right? Like cards are ruled differently now than they were then, but we're not using the 2023 rulings for these cards because like that's not what we're playing with. Like if somebody plays Sandgan, they're not playing the 2023 ruling of Sandgan.
Right.
Yes.
I really don't like the time rules. This is my first tournament ever in life playing with these time rules where it's end of phase and that's it. Luckily, not luckily though, because I really don't go into time like that. I think, I'm not even sure anymore, but I think I went into time once, maybe the entire tournament. I know for a fact though that I didn't go into time more than once if I did even go into time once. So I don't think that you should be going in. I already said this. I don't think that time is a thing that should be happening very often in Edison format. The format is really, in my opinion, it's not very hard. And I do think it takes two people to go into time. I had one round. The round that I'm thinking of is round 3. I played against the Diva Hero guy. He's actually a supporter of the IMNerd podcast. Shout out to MSW 2389. I played against him, and I remember that was the longest match I had in the entire tournament. And I don't think it went to time. I feel like if it did, it was one of those things where like it's death right now, and there's not one of those like, oh, I only won or only lost because of time. It was just the game was over. I remember there was a super poly involved on my end. Like I super polyed and the game was just actually over. And they might have been like, all right, time is called. I'm like, well, it's just actually game right now. We don't have to even but yeah, the time rules are wild. And like Cairo said, pretty much everyone that I know didn't really have an issue with it because we didn't really go into time. Like all the people we drove with, McCabe finishes really fast. Vinny, Corey, Adam, like all of us were just done our matches before time goes on. But there obviously were people because we had like 20 minutes of overtime every round. And I'm like, what could be taking so long? Like, I just don't get it. Like, what could possibly be taking so long?
You guys are just premature.
Yeah. But okay, I want to get back, like far back to what we were talking about with the switching decks thing. So Cairo decided like, all right, I'm gonna play Diva Hero for the Friday night tournament, right? To see if I'm going to play it for nationals. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to switch to Black Wings. And I was like, okay, I kind of can agree with that because if something is just not doing it for me right now, I can't be like, nah, you got to keep going with it because that's just crazy, right? But I'm like, okay, it's not like Diva Hero absolutely shitting on you. Like even the tournament you didn't top like what 2 weeks ago, it was really because of tiebreakers, if we're being honest, and not because of like you did bad.
I heard about how tiebreakers worked at that. That was a rant.
Yeah, so it wasn't like you. Yeah, it wasn't like you did bad. It was like you got tiebreaker fucked. And so Diva Hero didn't really do anything wrong to you per se. So he played the Diva Hero deck on Friday and got second. And now the craziest part about this though, and this made me so annoyed because I was scared. I really didn't want him to switch to Black Wings. I really strongly feel like that was going to be a mistake. So he gets to the finals of the Friday tournament, right? And basically only first place got a prize for that event. Like, if we're
I got a box.
Like I said, only first place got a prize. So he gets to the finals of the tournament. Yeah, you could have kept that to yourself. So he gets to the finals of that tournament and they get to game 3. And Cairo blatantly has game, okay? His opponent has 2 back rows, a Sirocco and a Bora. His opponent's life is at 5,000. Cairo has a Malicious Engrave. He has a Diva, Brain Control, and Heavy Storm in hand. He draws for turn and draws the second Malicious.
Oh.
And literally, like when I say literally, before he drew for turn, I was standing up because I was seated right next to Cairo and I saw what was about to happen. Like I literally was like, oh, well, that's just game. The second this guy passes his turn, the game is fucking over. So I start to stand up because I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. It was also like literally 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something like that. Like literally. Yep. So super late. I go to stand up and as I stand up, I caught a glimpse because I don't know. I have this thing where I play way too much Yu-Gi-Oh in my life. So if I see the slightest part of a card, I could tell exactly what it is. So as he's drawing for turn, I caught the slightest glimpse as I was standing up and turning away of a Malicious. And I turned my head and I was like, there's no fucking way that is what I just saw. So I like, as I'm standing up, I look down, I see the Malicious in his hand now, and I sit back down. I don't say anything. Like I don't say anything. I just sit there. And listen, Cairo has a stone face. So do I. But like, it would have taken everything in me not to rage in that moment because it was literally fucking so much game if he didn't draw that one card. And I estimated that he had about 27 cards in his deck. So when we did the math, it was a 3% chance that he draws Malicious, which is, Cairo said, if you do the inverse, it's even worse. If you say I had a 97% chance to win that game, which is game 3, I have a 97% chance to win that game as opposed. So if you play that game 100 times, Cairo wins 97 of them. That is fucking absurd. And he draws the malicious, and then he loses. Like, the game just ends.
Oh my God.
It just basically ends because he goes like heavy storm. It goes through. Of course, we knew the heavy storm was going to go through. We knew the brain control was going to go through and all that. But like, he didn't kill the guy, and then the guy just won. Like, he just came back and won. And that it was really an unfortunate. It was an unfortunate thing. Also, everything like lined up perfectly because on the first turn of that game 3, you went Allure and banished Plague Spreader Zombie. That was the first play of the game. So like, it was so bad. And so I'm saying all of this to say, I was caping really hard for Diva Hero. I was like, please don't switch your deck. And he said, I won't do it unless it craps out on me. He gets to the finals and I'm like, broken. Now you have to play it. But then the last play of the game, it fucking gives up on him in the worst way possible. And I was like, bro, now I look crazy. Now I'm like, yo, I wonder what's going through his head, because he's probably like, oh, absolutely fucking not. Like, this is actually like the worst. Because for me and a lot of other people, I hate the idea of second place. Like, I fucking hate it. I've got second place before. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
I've gotten second place before. This is a trophy from ARG in 2015 where I got second place. I personally fucking hate second place, right? Like,
it ended a lot better than I thought it was about to. I thought Frazier about the OD. I thought he was going to be like, I got second place before, grab his second place trophy, and then break it on screen. I was like, what is he about to do?
This has been sitting on the floor. I'll tell you what happened with this trophy initially. Initially with this trophy, I left it in the hotel room the night that we were leaving to come back to Philly. And one of the people I was driving with, because I went to that event with Nick Ma and Tej and a couple other people. One of them was like, yo, I just went to go like double check the room, because we were leaving and your trophy's in there. And I was like, oh, like, yeah, I left it. And they were like, what? They were like, I was like, yeah, I left it. And they were like, why would you do that? And I was like, it's fucking second place. Like, I don't fucking want that. And they're like, that's crazy. Like, you did well. I was like, yeah, but like, I didn't win. Like, I don't fucking want, like, I know what it feels like to win. I want to win. I didn't come here to fucking get second. Like, I want to win. So I literally, this trophy's been sitting on my floor. It is so dusty right now. And I've tried to get rid of this thing multiple times. And every time someone always saves it and just like, all right, well, I'll take it from you. I'll just hold it for you. You're being ridiculous or whatever like that. But like, at the end of the day, I want to win. So I know as soon as
crazy because when I got second place at, I didn't really care about the locals that much.
Yeah.
But when I got second place at nationals, I was the saddest person in the room. Everyone's like, oh, you did so well. Oh, congratulations. But I was literally the saddest person in the room. Yeah. And then I just kind of felt like history was repeating itself, because if anyone reads the feature match, it wasn't even close. Like, it was just a straight reaming. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, I didn't draw so well. And neither did he, but like, he just like drew the cards that he needed to help him at the time. And like, I didn't draw so well. And then like, I say all the time that Diva Hero has a very tough time dealing with royal oppression. And like game 1, I just like lose because like he draws Dust Shoot when he needs to. He draws Grepher when he needs to. And then like, it just worked out perfectly in his favor. And then game 2, like I special summon, I start to like go on the offensive. He flips up royal oppression. I have no out to royal oppression. And I'm just like, yep. Well, that's just going to be game.
So
I know how my deck works.
I want to talk about that a little bit, what you said, because I've been saying it all weekend, but now I'm going to say it on the podcast. One of the things that is one of my biggest annoyances in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and this happens to everybody, and we've all done it to people without realizing it. The person who loses is the one who realizes it, though. So there's a thing where you get sacked from your opponent because they just open broken. We've all experienced it. We've all done it to people, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to preface this by saying I am like one of the people who is the most accepting of losses in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I've played so much of it. And I always say to people, I'm an old man now. So I tell people, I've sacked people the hardest in my opening hand. I've sacked people in the middle of the game. I've drawn the Dark Armor, the Brain Control off the top. I've done everything. Like, I've done all of the worst things that you could do to somebody as far as sacking. And I've had all of it happen to me. I played way too much Yu-Gi-Oh! To not have seen every possible sacky ass scenario, experienced it, and given it. So for me, I'm like, okay, I don't let it like destroy me as far as my mindset and my mood and stuff. It does suck. Like, that will never change. Like, losing sucks to me though. It's not even just like getting sacked. It's like losing fucking sucks. I don't need to be sacked. If I just lost, I'm not the happiest person, right? But
I want to just interject, and I want to see if you agree, because I think you do based on what you're saying. Losing sucks, period.
Correct.
But it does suck a little bit more when it feels like nothing was in your control.
Right. So the worst, there's two types of ways that you get sacked. The one is, like I said, a person opens up insane and it was a non-game from the beginning. Think of like trap dash shoot and then they just kill you next turn. Or they just do an OTK where they brain control you and just kill you in one turn or whatever. Those ones suck. But those ones are like, well, there was nothing I could have done differently. I just fucking got destroyed by your opening hand. The worst one to me, though, and McCabe and I used to talk about this all the time. We still do, I guess, now because it still happens. But the worst one to me is when neither one of you open that great, but over the course of the game, your opponent just draws cards that counters exactly what is happening in the game. It's like, instead of them opening broken, they draw the card that literally counters whatever you have. So if you have an alias, they draw a card trooper to mill and crash with it and draw a card. If you have Royal Oppression, they draw MST. Like if you just drew a Caius, they just drew Trap Dust You and set it.
Yep.
It's stuff like that that is like, that is the most frustrating, because when you go back and look at the game, you're like, yo, he just drew that. I actually had a game, I reviewed it on a 24-hour stream. I didn't even realize how much I had gotten sacked, but I was playing against the Frog player in the last tournament, in RBET one. I was playing against the Frog player, and I'm playing Christy Sworn, and the Frog player, they're playing like, I don't even know if it was Hero Frog. It might have just been regular Frogs, but they were playing Frogs. Game one, I have absolute undeniable game. I have a Plague Splitter Zombie in my graveyard, and I like summon JD, I clear the field, I summon a monster, and I'm about to stack for Plague to make Goyo Guardian because he's at like 5,000. So JD plus that will be game. And when I go to stack, they go DD Crow. They only have 2 cards in their hand. So I was like, first of all, DD Crow is in your main deck in fucking Frogs. That's just already like, what are you doing? Because the deck, it just, anyway. So that's already one annoyance. It's like, why is that in your fucking main deck? Secondly, when I reviewed the replay on the 24-hour stream, I was like, holy shit, that was the card that he just drew the turn before I killed him. Like that, he just drew that. And it had to be just that card, and nothing else in Frogs will have stopped me from winning that turn. So I was like, that was wild, because it needed to be that. And then it wasn't even enough, right? So it's DD Crow. I was like, okay, attack you for a lot, go. His other card in hand with the DD Crow, so he's like, discard DD Crow. Now he just has 1 card in hand. That card that he's holding is Soul Exchange. And then he draws for turn and is Substitute. So like after I attack for a lot and I pass, he goes draw Substitute, Substitute, Soul Exchange JD, make dupe lock, and then the game just ends from there. And I was like, okay, I wouldn't be mad if he just straight up Dougie'd on me from like the beginning of the game and it wasn't even close. The fact that we went back and forth a little bit, and then the way it ended was I go for game in a very normal way that like any Lightsworn deck would, and you have a main deck DD Crow that you just drew, and into also top decking the out to the JD situation was like the wildest shit. So the frustration from your opponent slowly drawing cards to beat you, to me, is way worse than them just God-handing you. Like, I'd rather just be God-handed, because at least I feel like, well, that wasn't even a fucking game. Like, I didn't even get to play, but the slow counter feels gross. It feels so gross to have the slow counter happen. And again, I've done it to people, obviously, without realizing, because you're the winner, so you don't even realize a lot of the times that like you slowly countered this person's exact setup. You might, but sometimes you beat them and you just think like, oh, I just beat this guy, I don't even know what he had, right? Like because you don't really know. You might just beat them and you're like,
and in real life you can't review the replay.
Correct. So you don't even know that it's happening. And then the better you get at Yu-Gi-Oh, the more you start to notice it, which is like, that's also annoying too. Like the better you get, the more you realize like, oh, you just drew a card and said it. And then on the next time I did this play, and that was pulling the rug. So you just drew the pulling the rug, and you just said it, and you needed to have that exact card, otherwise it was game here. And then like the next turn is like, oh, you had to draw the Gale here. There's like a bunch of that type of stuff. So those are like the 2 different types of losses in Yu-Gi-Oh that are annoying. One being the God hand opening, and the other being the slow counter. And basically what me and Kyra are saying is that he didn't get God handed. It wasn't like open dust shoot, win the die roll, take your shit away, Greffer, pitch, OTKU type vibe. It was just a slow, like, let me slowly pick at exactly what you got going on. And it doesn't look like you're losing from the gate, but you are losing the entire time because everything you do is just getting counter hardcore.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I wanted to do a quick on this note as it started from Cairo saying he was the saddest person in the room. I definitely understand that, and that if you look at a lot of competitive games, I always use Melee as my number one example. A lot of these big tournaments, like the person that came in second place is usually sad. Like, because if you get top 8, a lot of people are happy about getting top 8. Like it's weird. It's like this weird thing where like if you get top 8, you're like, I did pretty good this tournament. Like I got top 8. If you get top 4, like it's almost like once you get the top 8, the higher you get, the higher you're placing, that's not first, the worse you fucking feel. Because you get so much fucking closer.
I can vouch for it. It's 100% true. The further you get and not get first, the work to me anyway, because I'm really competitive. To me and like other very like Silverman, I know it's the same way. McCabe has gotten so many second places. We hate that shit. Like
it's frustrating.
It's like the further you get without the win, the worse it, because you're like, I was this close. Like you're like, I was.
And everybody
so
else is like, you did
close.
so good, and then you're like, shut the fuck up.
It's so hard to like accept the praise of people when you're like, oh, I lost in this, I got pretty far, but I lost. It's like, yeah, I know you feel like it was a good run, and I know it's also, but at the end of the day, I'm so competitive that I don't really care about a top performance if it's not going to be a win. Like I'm at this point, I'm a content creator, so now we obviously have to like milk all of that stuff. Me and Kyra are. So like if we top anything, it's like it doesn't matter if we win or not. We just have to put on a happy face, right, and be like, hey, I got this place. By the end of the day, like we want to win, like right, we want to fucking.
But it's just like honestly, and what's so frustrating about it, and I was talking to Frazier about it right before my finals match, is like it's been happening consistently with me. Like I have placed second place in the last 3 tournaments that I've entered in. I got second place. For those, many of you might not know this because I haven't like uploaded a video about it or anything.
Oh yeah,
but I was playing a little.
The other tournament. Yeah, I remember now.
I was playing a little bit of Tengu format, and it was my first ever Tengu format tournament because like my goal was like to just one and done the community. Being just like, just kind of like troll a bit. But I finished second and I was like, wow, that really sucks. And what even hurts more is I was undefeated until literally the last round.
It is funny though, you were confident enough to go in and be like, I'm going to one and done the community. And you did get second. So like, it sucks. But the fact that you were able to go into the Tengu tournament having never played in a Tengu tournament and get second is kind of absurd.
That's the same thing. He was undefeated for like 3 rounds. And that's when the conversation started to be like, yo, if this works out, you just win and never play again.
Yep.
And like me and Stengo were like dying about the thought of doing that is so outrageous because like there are people who play that tournament or play that format and they're dedicated to it. They're like, oh, people are sleeping on Tengu format. You guys got to start doing videos on Tengu format. You hear all of this bullshit about Tengu format. And again, I don't really hate on Tengu format, but my whole thing is we have the momentum right now with Edison. Konami's backing Edison at this point. So it's like, why would we pivot to another format and fragment the community? So that's always been my stance. Anyways, the idea of him like one and dunning was hilarious. And yeah, he gets to the finals and he loses and gets second place. I didn't even realize until you just said it though, that was like the beginning of a streak that goes on for like 3 weeks basically of second here, then second Friday night, then second at the actual Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, 3 in a row. Yeah, that's wild.
So it's just like, it's just like sad because like, obviously it's just like you said earlier, I feel the same way. I'm a competitor. Like, like second, hooray. But like, I want to win. You know what I mean? And I want to win.
I know from being in close proximity to McCabe, I grew up with him. We traveled to every event together. And McCabe is one of the best players in the entire world who ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! Like easily, and one of the best deck builders. He's fucking insane at deck building. So he has gotten second a lot of times. Like a scary amount of times, and I know what it's like to be close to the person who gets second a lot, and like that shit does not feel good to them if they actually care about the game. Like they do not like it. The congratulations on second shit is like almost like a backhanded compliment. People don't mean anything by it, but it is like a backhanded compliment to someone who's competitive. Like for people who have never been that far in a tournament, right? Like you look at it as like, oh man, like I've never topped anything, or I've never gotten this far or whatever. And to you it's like a really big deal, but to them, just full disclosure, like if they're a competitive person, to them it's like, damn, like I just have to say thank you and move on, but I really don't want to dwell on that. Like it is not the fantasy, right? Like I looked at Kyro's face and people were walking past and being like, oh, congrats on like, because he was holding the Black Rose Dragon for like, oh God, a lot of time, right? Like it was a lot of time. And people would walk past and be like, oh, congrats on winning the Black Rose thing. And his face just told me everything I needed to know. Like it was the most like, yep, thanks. You can buy it if you want. And just like that type of vibe. Like that's what the face was saying. Like he didn't actually say that, but the face was just giving like, yeah, you could take this thing and I'm ready to go home.
Another thing too, though, that I think has an effect on it is like, if you get, let's just say top 8 or top 16, by the time the person who got second gets second, you had already lost hours ago.
Yes.
And so like the sting and the feeling of losing, if you had a stinger of that, has kind of worn off. People got to remember that the person that got second, although it is a great accomplishment that they were to go that far, they were better than literally everybody else in the tournament but one person. Yep. They just lost. So like the sting of losing hasn't worn off, even though they've done so. They literally just lost.
Not only that, the person who wins literally at any tournament, right? At least in my experience, with Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, and it's probably the same in every tournament, but I'm just going to speak to my experience. The person who wins usually gets cheered for after they win in that exact moment. Like literally, people who are watching fucking clap and cheer for the person who just won. And so the person who got second is just eating shit and dying on the side.
Yeah.
Like literally, you're sitting there.
It's definitely the loss that hurts the most.
Yes, like for example, when I won YSS Atlanta, I remember. So obviously, I'm playing against like one of my best friends. Right, I'm playing against McCabe. I win, and I don't know what it was. Something said, "Do not pop off." I literally when he put his hand out, because he conceded. When he put his hand out, I looked at him, and it was like a moment. Like it was like a pause, like a pause of realization, like what just happened, like oh shit, it's over. Because I didn't realize that Solomon, and then he Solomon, then I Solomon back. I didn't know that would be the end of the game. But he puts his hand out, and in that situation, if I don't know the person, I would probably like quickly shake their hand and be like, yes, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Like crazy. I literally shook his hand, and I was like, oh my god, like wow. Yeah. And that's that. I kept it like very, very calm. But the people around us were just like going ham. I'm talking claps. Somebody picked up my fucking chair. Jarrell Winston tried to lift me up. Like it was crazy. And he's sitting there packing up his stuff. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't really want this at this exact moment.
Because that's one of your best friends across the table, and so like as good as it feels, like you don't want him to, he's going to feel like shit regardless. But you don't want to add to it.
Yes, and so I always think about like again, I've gotten second before. I got second to Tommy Rowe, who's been on this podcast, and when he won, same thing. Like people cheer for him, obviously, and I'm happy for him and everything. But it's like at the same time, the person sitting there packing their shit up who got second just has to get out the way, while everyone's like, wants to do interviews and take pictures with the person who won. So that's just like always something that a lot of people can't relate. Like you just can't relate. You don't know what the fuck it feels like, but it doesn't feel good for someone who's been to the top of the mountain multiple times. It's not something that feels good. But it is still a great accomplishment. I'm really proud of Cairo for just again showing that he's one of the best players in Edison format. Like it's just undeniable. And yeah, this was a great tournament. I didn't expect it to be a chance for us to be in the grand finals, even though that's the dream, because we came with other people who are also good. So it's like in any given tournament, it could have been Vinny, right? It could have been McCabe. Not McCabe because he plays Glabbies. But it could have been Vinny.
Do that to McCabe.
It could have been Adam. It could have been any of us. Because like you said, Adam started off 5-0. Me and Cairo were 4-1, I believe. So Adam started off better than both of us, which is, it is what it is. Adam started off better than both of us. And I was like, damn, we're out here. The guy who had a deck crisis, who didn't even know if he was going to play the deck he's playing right now, is doing better than both of us. And that just, that's how it is. But at the end of the day, right? Like Cairo's the best placing Diva Hero player. I was the best placing Frog player. And there were a lot of people playing our decks in that exact tournament. A lot of people said blatantly that they were, they loved the channel. They loved the IMNerd podcast. They were asking about Kenny. They asked about you a lot. And I explained to them like, Kenny works on a weekend. So, he makes a lot of his money on the weekends. And
some of these winter events, though, I might try to go to in the winter, because I still work on the weekends in the winter. I still work in a bar, but it's so much less busy that if I say like ahead of time, I go, hey, I'm not going to work this weekend. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So in the winter, I could maybe like go to an event just to go to an event.
It was pretty cool because everyone knows who a true hero is, but no one knew who Cairo was. So actually, when I showed up to the event, no one knew me, basically. No one knew me. So I was wearing some like merchandise that basically says like a true hero. But like, people are uncertain, like, is he just a big fan or it's like, is this really a true hero?
That would be a little unhinged. I'm not going, I get it that people might think that, but that would be a little scary to me.
That would be awesome if somebody walked up to you though and were like, oh, I like that channel too.
That would be crazy.
So like a lot of people were skeptical and they just came up to me and they were like, are you a true hero? And I was like, yeah, like that's me. I'm a true hero. And they're like, oh, like it's such a pleasure to meet you and things like that. And like they finally got to see. Yeah, right, exactly. And like a lot of times I actually had to self-name drop, right? Like McCabe was making fun of me for it.
Yeah, you were doing that shit so much, and I just realized that's a part of your personality at this point because that shit is cringe. Okay.
Wait, what did he do?
Literally could never. Cairo has been...
I was joking, but I was also being serious. So I'm going up against. I played so many Diva Hero like mirror matches, right? So like I would
and
like
be playing a mirror match. Sitting next to him every time. By the way,
yes, he was next to me every time. And then like I'd like win like game 1 or whatever, and I'd be like, hey, do you know who a true hero is? He's like, yeah, like I'm a big fan. I'm like, that's me. And then they'd be like, what?
Literally, every time I'm sitting there playing my quiet ass game.
That is 100% the Cairo.
Listen, I'm sitting there playing my quiet ass game, okay, with my opponent. We are having a respectable chess-like game, going back and forth with all these thinking processes and things happening. And then all I hear, and on the literally right to my right or left, is, do you know who a true hero is? And I just slowly crane my head over like, God, please don't do it. And he's like, it's me.
Don't do it.
And then the person just loses their shit every time.
That's awesome.
And I'm oh my God.
Let me say this. And I know this from Cairo because me and Cairo used to be really competitive with each other in terms of fighting games. During the PS3 era, it was like kind of like one of our little goals to be proficient at every fighting game that's on the PS3.
Yeah.
And so we played them a lot, right? But that is part of Cairo's, like, everybody has their own energy, own way to go
their
to
own
the
DNA.
game. And games have, every game that you play has a level of mind game to it, whether in or out of the game. That, what you just described, at the time, Cairo didn't have a YouTube channel, so obviously he couldn't do that. But what you described and things like that is Cairo, like, that's part of the way he plays games. That's part of his mind game. Like, if you're fucking playing somebody and then out of nowhere, they're like, oh, by the way, I'm Frazier Smith. I won the last YCS Atlanta. Great, right. Nice to meet you. Like, you're gonna, people, what the fuck is going on?
Listen,
like, it throws people off.
But in Cairo's perspective, his opponents were like very, very happy that it was him. And I'm just sitting here like, God damn it. I know, because I've been friends with him for God knows how long now. I actually don't even know how long. It's well over a decade though. And literally, I was thinking to myself, this is exactly who he is and always has been. It's just funny because now other people have to deal with it. Like it was fun. It was already annoying when it was just like, I just had to deal with it. Now it's like, well, now the whole world has to deal with this shit. And
that's awesome.
This quintessential Cairo to be like, yeah, that's me. And he has this big ass smile on his face. And like the person's also happy too. So they're just fucking hearts in the middle of the two players, like literally in my face.
You guys want to know, this reminds me of something, speaking of like people looking at you and almost being like, oh, is that actually a true hero or is that just somebody that's a fan? Something sort of similar happened to me on the 24-hour stream. I'm sitting there streaming with Frazier, hanging out and talking, and somebody in chat goes, oh, that's Stango. And they refer to me as Stango. And I'm like, well,
you guys are literally first cousins.
No,
we are cousins, not, but you are not. You are not Stango. You are blood first cousins. You are as close as you can be. Your moms are sisters. But that is hilarious. Like, no, that is actually
I'm actually just Kenny,
the guy who's been doing the podcast for 2 years now.
Just that's who I am.
Just casually doing the podcast for 2 years. Don't mind me though, right? Like,
don't mind me.
Don't mind me. I'm just
gonna fold my napkin over here.
Yeah, I'm just here. No, that shit is hilarious. But yeah, Cairo did a really fucking good job this weekend. And yeah, like I told him straight up, I was like, I'm really proud of you in general in Edison format and just in Yu-Gi-Oh! Period. Like I didn't know, because back when we were younger, I couldn't tell if he was good. And he explained to me that like it was when Dueling Book happened or Dueling Network or whatever, where he got to play a lot, because back then Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a game that the decks would come out and they required a lot of resources to get. And then going to events required even more resources to do. And when we were younger, he was like, I don't really have the fucking opportunity to do that stuff. And I just didn't have the money, the resources to actually be like, I can afford this $1,000 Teledad deck. It's actually more than that, but I can afford this $1,000 Teledad deck and then also go to this $1,000 trip to California to play with my $1,000 deck. Like that wasn't a thing when you're in college and like, your parents are already sacrificing to send you to school and, all the other stuff that comes with people who are not Silver Spoon.
It's kind of another example.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's kind of another example of luck, not only in the game, but out of the game. Like sometimes just like whatever series of situations and events that lead up to that point in your life, like whether or not you have the money to even buy that deck is like kind of luck.
Yeah, it is.
Especially if you're under 18.
For me, I always had the opportunity to travel because my mom, she works for the airlines. So that's why a lot of times I was able to like go to those events. But just like Frazier, just being able to attend the events isn't enough. You also need the correct cards. Like you're not going to win like Tengu format with like, I don't know, basically without the Tengu cards, without the triple tour guide, without like whatever
tour guide was 150.
Without the maxis, like you're not going to do it. Like if you're just playing like compulsives and everyone else is playing like maxis, tour guides, BLS,
Solid
you know what
warning.
I mean? Like
you just named like 1,000. I'm pretty sure 3 tour guides, 3 maxis, and warnings, and all the other stuff. That's $1,000 right there. That's not even a complete deck. That's not even a complete deck. Tour guide was literally over 100 a pop. I remember they peaked around, well, I don't know, I won't say peak, but I remember they averaged at one point around 150 each. So when somebody sold the playset for $420, it was a deal.
Yep.
A playset of Tour Guides, which honestly, if I'm being completely honest, in Tengu format, you needed them to play the game. Like you needed Tour Guide to play the game. You could fucking play Heroes or any other deck, but like your chances of winning go down astronomically if Tour Guide is not a part of your deck.
I remember when she came out, she did change the fucking game. People were like, this fucking card
might be the true beginning of insane power creep. Tour Guide. Insane power creep in the game when Tour Guide was the thing. Like insane.
They had to change the way Sangan worked because of her.
They had to change the way Xyz worked. Period. Yeah. They were like, detaching them does not trigger graveyard effects because that's how bad it got.
And it's funny. It's also funny because like in my deck profile that I did, the Asian with cards, he asked me, hey, a true hero, is there a reason why like most of your cards are gold series? And I just said, I'm poor. like that's it. Like I don't got the money for the alties and like the ultras and things like that. It's just like, yeah, they're gold series because like they're cheap and I want shiny cards. Like,
so I want to give some context to what Cairo just said because it could sound real crazy if there's no context. The deck profile he did was with a YouTube channel that is called Asian with Cards. But the way he said it, he was like, I did a deck profile with the Asian with cards. And that shit just sounded so wild out of context. But that is a YouTube channel. You guys can check that out where Cairo has his deck profile. I checked today because it came up my recommended and it was literally like 4,500 views and it came out yesterday or like 2 days ago. So that video is going crazy. But yeah, Asian with Cards is the name of the YouTube channel. So it just sounded funny the way you said it, so nonchalant, just like, oh yeah, I did a video with an Asian with cards, and it's just like that sounds so wild. But yeah, this event was great. I have some nonsense to talk about before we'll jump back into Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, but there was some fucking rants this trip that I've been waiting to talk about this whole time.
Here we go. I haven't heard this story yet, but
it's a great one.
Before the call started, he mentioned the headline of the story, and I don't even know if he told the story about Thanksgiving, but it just reminds me of Thanksgiving. That's all I'm going to say.
I think that they got the Thanksgiving story on the podcast before. But I will say this. Before we jump into my crazy stories about the things that happened at Nationals, I'm just going to do the Patreon read off right now, and then we will continue. So real quick, let me just get the list out because there are a shit ton of people, especially now. There's 58 people. Okay, as far as our Patreon goes, as you guys know, there are exclusive episodes of the podcast that drop only on Patreon. We also have video versions of the podcast on Patreon. So if you want to actually see us, me and Kenny, you can blatantly see us on Patreon. But yeah, for everybody who are interested in joining, you can also get access to our Discord server through our Patreon. So check that out, patreon.com/IMNerdpodcast. It'll come right up. Now I'm gonna read this list off. All right, so we got Connie. Ronathan kept scrubbing his side events finals. What the fuck? Nathaniel Leon Mormon, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode gave me PTSD. Xavier Swift, Hylian, Dimitri Barnes, Meow, Dominique Roberts, Giovanni Avalos, Alex Flamer, Henri Reynolds, Dan Variable. Shout out to Dan, by the way. He also got top 8. First to Home, S. Akuma. Shout out to S. Akuma. You said you want to do some video series. We'll talk about that later if you're hearing this, so just hit me up. Let me know what the deal is with that. Mitchell Niles has Hydro Pump. Shout out to you. Midwest Gaming. I did see you at the actual event. That's actually Joe Dietrich. Let's see. William Shapiro, Dimitri Safridas, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey. Shout out to Dallas for helping me to try to find Vortex Troopers on Friday, even though that was a mistake. KJ, Roz Weiss, Nick Stengo, Hanto, our 2-time national champion. Ka-Chan is a poorly written character. Sarah Maria, Sunny Top Cut Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa. Shout out to Philip. I actually played him round 4. We went to game 3. Chris Lynn, Wookie 159, MSW 2389. This is probably the most wholesome person that I met at the event because me and him had a falling out in the Discord server and it was a whole thing. And we actually played each other round 3 and we had a very nice heart-to-heart conversation like 2 grown men, and we hashed it out, and now he is officially back, which I really, really appreciate. And that takes a lot of pride to even do. So I really appreciate you, Matt. And then we have Edison Club, Kyle Batelho, Brandon Moore, Sugal, Nick, Mr. Soul Tie, let's see, Nafa, Corey Fauser, Omar Ramos, Elijah Barfoth, and then
a true hero. Hey, Tyler Tadeo, Majora X, Anthony, Volvi, the Mega Monarch, Big Stinky, Crunch Rap, Duty Booty, Adam Corey, and Raised Peacock, Leo Bacani, Janitor 215, and then when I looked at this list, I facially reacted to this. Frazier beats birds.
I don't even know what that means.
I can tell you. I know exactly what that is. during the 24-hour stream, there were some birds chirping, and Frazier was like, "I'm gonna go take care of these fucking birds." And then, like, he went out there and I don't know, beat the shit out of some birds.
Yo, Frazier beats birds is great.
Thomas Rude, Joshua, Steve Rogers, Wayne Trader, Eric Chai, I think I said that right.
Yeah.
Wayne, I can't say that last name, but Wayne and Finesse Kid.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the IMNerd podcast Patreon. This list is getting so long, so we really appreciate you guys. More exclusive content coming on the way, and we're also going to do another IMNerd podcast, what we call like little cup, small cup. So we actually got a donation already of $100 from someone, and we're going to use that for the prize pool for the very next event, which is great. So that's already crazy that people are helping us to do this type of thing. And I'm really appreciative of that. I didn't expect it at all. Willie, shout out to you. I didn't want to air out like, your whole government, but shout out to Willie for donating $100 to the IMNerd podcast small cup. So we will be hosting another one of those. Just got to figure out when we're going to schedule it, because right now there are so many fucking tournaments scheduled. Like literally there's another Edison tournament this weekend. I am annoyed because
really?
I swear to God, yes, there's another Edison tournament this weekend. I'm annoyed because the last 3 weeks, I think it's been 3 weeks, there's been like Deck Devastators, RBET, Nationals, and now there's one this weekend. So that's 4 weeks in a row. So that's a month.
This is like Melee Prime.
This one out then. There will probably be no a true hero in this next one.
Yeah, I'm still not decided if I'm playing or not. I really, to be honest, I feel bad. I don't want to play though. If I'm being like, I really don't want to play. I'm kind of a little burnt out. Like it's been 3 weeks straight.
Yeah, take a break.
My Saturdays have been completely taken over by Yugioh. And before Nationals, I was okay with it because I was still figuring out what I wanted to do. And now that we're past the national point, it's like, okay, like I'm a little burnt out. So,
well, like for me, the main reason why I'm not going to attend is because 1, burnt out, and 2, I'd rather just spend time with you guys. Yeah. Because like I'm here in America, and like I know we haven't planned anything yet, but like I just want to spend time with you guys. Yeah. And I particularly care about playing an event, but
yeah,
I'll say this on that note. One, it is kind of cool. It's like I remember when Melee was like there was a really peak Melee thing where there was a major every fucking weekend, basically.
Like a resurgence into it, right?
Yeah, and then but also on that same note, even during those times, all the top players, Mango, Armada, HBox, Leffen, etc., Mewtwo King, after like the big after like Evo or Genesis, like after the big tournaments, the ones that like make the year, like they would take a break. Like they don't play. They usually don't play in the next major like after Evo or something. You know what I mean? Or like not all of them would be there just because like you do get burnt out and you need like a break. There needs to be like a little bit of an off season. Maybe not for the tournaments themselves. Like it's good to keep those going, but the players need their own off seasons every now and then to take a break, even if it's just a week or two from a tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that also for just mental health reasons and stuff like that as well, it's good to just take a break from being competitive, I think.
Yeah.
You just need one at some point. So I'm still very undecided, but because my friend wants to see Mission Impossible this weekend, and I want to see Mission Impossible too. I see every single one of them in theaters in the first weekend.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really want to do that. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do that on Sunday. But then if I top the tournament, I read the announcement. The tournament is a 2-day event, and this is another thing that they changed. Top 8 is double elimination. So like I was like, yo, that's the whole Sunday. Like that's that's going to take, if you top, that's your entire Sunday. And I think it starts at 12 p.m. on Sunday. So like literally you will be playing, if you do well, you'll be playing until the night.
Wait. So it's a Swiss tournament?
It's a Swiss tournament.
And top 8 stuff, that's okay. Just real quick, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you are running a tournament, you got to pick a tournament. It's either Swiss and it runs like fucking Swiss, and Top Cut runs the way all Swiss tournaments run.
Right.
Or it's a double. You can't, because then that means somebody can lose like 4 times and still win the tournament or something. Like or 3 because like there's a possibility you can lose twice and still top. It's rare, but like you could lose twice and still top, and then like you get to the double elimination part and then lose again and then win the tournament. Look, you can have like 3 losses
I win
and win the tournament.
And
like,
I won.
That's crazy. Yeah. So it's either a double elimination tournament from front to back, or it's a Swiss tournament. Like you just got to pick a lane.
By the way, if it crosses 200 players, I forget exactly the number, but it's like 2 something. If it crosses 200 players, it's actually top 16 and still double elimination. So like
that's just wild.
Listen. I thought about it, Cairo. I literally this morning when I saw it,
crazy.
I literally looked up, like I just looked up in my room like this, and I said, "Oh God, that's the whole day." Like that is like so much playing. You might as well say you're playing 2 days of equivalent Yu-Gi-Oh! Like 2 days of basically a shit ton of rounds. Of course, assuming that you don't just go lose in top cut. But everyone who does well, and like, you know, we like to do well, you're going to be playing for a lot. You're going to be playing, everyone has to die twice in top cut. That's just a lot.
That's too much.
So yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh my God. Like, imagine me committing and then I make it far and it's like, well, now I have to play, right? Because once you top, you're like, I'm not gonna just not play. And it's just, yeah. So, and I'm not necessarily like shitting on this tournament. It's just that for us, right now, it's a lot for us right now who just played nationals. I just got back and I got back at 4 a.m. and I didn't go to bed until like 5 something a.m. and then I had work at 8 a.m. and I'm still lightly recovering from the trip. My voice is still kind of scuffed. On top of that, I'm going to a concert tomorrow, so it's just for me. I'm very busy right now.
No, that's a lot. That is just a lot. And just as a piece of constructive criticism, I don't think that's the best way to run a tournament. But
just a constructive criticism is a good way to put it. I do think that it's a bit much to have double a limb top cut like that,
especially if like you start like suddenly it's double. Because like I said, it can create some really weird situations, or even because it is possible to go X1 and then top,
right,
and then. You're in double elimination, so now the winner can have lost twice and then win. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah.
For the winner of the tournament to have lost 2 games in a double elimination bracket, it's just I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I also, for Yu-Gi-Oh purposes, I kind of don't like the idea of getting to the grand finals and having to beat somebody twice. I do think that is like
that. Yeah.
I do not like the idea of that. But you know what I would.
I think there's other ways to do. Like, didn't ARGD?
I was literally
top cut is like 3 out of 5.
You're faster than me. You are faster than me.
That's like I think that's a great alternative.
I do think that if you get to the finals, and I think that this about every tournament, if you get to the finals, I think it should be best 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that every tournament should be best 3 out of 5 in the finals. I just think that the finals should just mean a little bit more. It should be untimed and it should be best 3 out of 5. That's like, and like I said, there are changes that can be made because I was critiquing changes earlier, and I said there are some things that the community doesn't even complain. We do not complain about top 16, top 8, stuff like that. Like when it's a cut the top 16, people were not complaining about Konami cutting YCSs to top 16. That was a good change because you play all that Yu-Gi-Oh! You go X and 2, and it's like, bro, I literally went 8 and 2 or 9 and 2, and I don't make it because you guys are cutting like so many people out. It doesn't make sense. So Konami fixed it to where now it's like top 16 or top 32. And that makes a lot of sense. It's based on a number of players. It's not like some bullshit. It's like based on a number of players.
Yeah.
This is what makes sense because X2 is usually a good record. Like that is a topping record at pretty much every major tournament. X2 is good because X2, I always assume when it comes to losses, you get 1 loss to your deck giving out on you. Because that's just what can happen in a card game. And it happens in every format ever of every card game ever. Your deck can just say no. So that can happen to you. So that's 1 loss. And then the other loss that you're allowed to have is your opponent God hands you. Like they literally just perfectly out you or they counter you slowly, whatever. But they like God hand you in a way and you didn't really get to like do anything about it. And that's an uncontrollable loss. Again, it's a card game. So these things can happen. Like, for example, me and Cairo got eliminated from Deck Devastators by Lightsworn. We didn't do a single fucking thing wrong. You can review the replay. You can watch the stream. You got absolutely Lightsworn. My opponent milled 3 wolves. Like, what do you want me to do, right? So it's like, that loss is uncontrollable. And I should be allowed to have at least one of those without being penalized for it. So if a tournament's cut the top 8 and it's like 300 people, well, guess what? You're not allowed to have that happen and have anything else happen. And that's just kind of, to me, that's kind of unfair. So I say all that to say, I don't mind tournaments being like, okay, based on this number of people, make it X2. But then once you start doing like double limb and all that stuff in there too, it gets a little crazy. I think that just having the finals mean a bit more. It works for everybody. Like you get to the finals and now it's best 3 out of 5. Let's really get the winner, right? Like, let's really see who is playing the best, who's performing the best. 3 out of 5 really says that to me. And I get it, like double elimination is like, oh, like you get an extra life and all that. But I feel like if you're playing Swiss, you already had lives.
Yeah, you already had lives. Yeah, that's
why Kenny was 100%. Like, don't combine it because you already. So the whole point of Swiss, the whole point of it not being double limb is that you get lives during the actual tournament. You get to play at X2, whereas double limb, you lose twice, you're actually out.
Yep.
So that's a rant there that we just wanted to get out there. As for these stories,
but I think it's an informative one for anybody that happens to be listening. I do think it's an informative rant for anybody that is thinking about running tournaments or is already running tournaments. I think it's a valuable, constructive piece of criticism, and just thought process to think about when you're running a tournament.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's get into the crazy stuff. So I have been to North Carolina.
I forgot this was all a preamble to that.
It was all a preamble. So I've been in North Carolina, I'm pretty sure like maybe twice in my life. One was for the Big Boy Gaming $2,000 tournament. That was it was like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. It's probably 2 months ago now. It's been 2 months. I went to Big Boy Gaming 2K. I topped that tournament and it was really nice, pleasant store and everything like that. But when I went there, I just kind of went there. It was Cinco de Mayo. So I got pretty fucked up from tequila on Friday. I woke up, went undefeated in the tournament, and then went back home after losing an elimination. So my experience there was like really quick. It honestly seemed like it was just one long day. This time going to nationals, we left on Friday morning at like 5 a.m. to go to nationals. And from Philadelphia to North Carolina, the drive is about six hours or so. So we get there and it's like noon. And one of the things, I'm single. Let me preface this by saying I am a single man. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not currently tied to any other person. So I have dating apps, right? I have dating apps on my phone. And one of the things that I love is when I get to a new city or a new state or whatever, I like to see what's going on in the dating scene in that area. I like to see what the people look like, what the culture is and stuff like that. And I just have to say that North Carolina is fucking unhinged, okay? I don't know what is in the water down there. And Kyra could attest to this. I showed everyone at dinner, and there was like 13 of us at dinner. I was getting the wildest messages I've ever gotten in my entire life. So one of them guys who messaged me was like, "Hey, what's up? Looking to get pig fucked by the big black cock tonight. Me and my homie are in the hotel.
That was just Cheyenne. Cheyenne was talking to you. That was just Cheyenne messaging you.
One guy said he wanted to get spit roasted with him and his friend. They're in the hotel. They're in their hotel right now, face down, ass up, ready to get spit. Whatever that means. I don't even know what this means. So by the way, like trigger warning.
I can explain it to you.
Trigger warning, because there's a lot of wild shit in these messages. I have so many of them. Then there was another guy who was like, "Hey, are you trying to link up?" Which is another word of saying like you're just trying to hook up, trying to have sex, whatever. And I was like, I'm not really feeling it. Like I'm with my friends right now. I wasn't really in a mood. I was like, I'm at an Airbnb. There's like 5 people here, so you can't come here. And he was like, well, he said, well, I can't host at my place either, but I know a spot in the woods that we could go to. And
spot in the woods.
And McCabe was like, yo, that guy just threatened you. He was like, that wasn't an invitation. That was a fucking threat.
Nah, he was trying to go cruising, man. He was trying to get a spot in the woods going.
McCabe was like, do you know how absurd that line is? That he knows a spot in the woods. He was like, so what are you supposed to do? Like, tell your Uber driver to let you off on the side of the highway and then you just fucking walk in the woods? Fucking drives.
When you think about it, right?
Fucking awesome.
Location, it's North Carolina.
Yes.
North Carolina.
Which is not a place for Black people technically. Like it's the South, right? So the South is notorious for racism. They fought for it. They fucking fought for racism, okay?
They were like, this is a good idea.
Yes. So the South is already like not the place that I would want to be in the woods, okay? And then this guy's like, yo, I know a spot in the woods we could go to. So immediately I just don't respond. And then he keeps going. And then I give my phone to Vinny. And Vinny starts to...
and you let Vinny respond?
That's awesome.
Vinny. That is awesome.
Vinny just had a time with my phone and that guy. And it just became the most unhinged thing. But it wasn't even just those two people. It wasn't even just the guy who wanted to get spit roasted with his friend in a hotel, or the guy who wanted me to come into a spot in the woods where I was guaranteed to get fucking Jeffrey Dahmered. It was just like a ton of people were saying crazy things. There was no lead up to it. It was like, yo, looking to throat you right now. Like, how big is it? And then I give my phone to Vinny, and Vinny be like, well, if you wanted, the cock is like 9, but my throat is infinity. Come gag me, daddy. And just saying the craziest shit to these people. And they would be like, oh no, I'm the one trying to do it. I don't want it back. Like, I don't even want it touched and all this other stuff. It was wild.
Hit him with I'm 5'5", with my throat 6'6".
Literally that. It was a lot of that. I passed my phone around. Everybody got to read the messages to know I wasn't lying. I wasn't joking. Every single person who messaged me on every dating app that I was on in North Carolina was absolutely unhinged. I got 0 normal conversations from anyone. There was no one who was just like, I'm a regular person. I'm looking to meet somebody, whatever. Even if you wanted to hook up, right? Because like, it's not like I'm a prude and I just don't want to hook up with people. But it's also like the way you start, in my opinion, at least where I'm from, is not just straight up, yo, I know a spot in the woods we could go to.
I know a spot in the woods.
And we can get it done. Or I'm in a hotel room right now, my friend, we're tied up and you can come pig roast us. Whatever. I'm still like, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know what that means.
You know what a spit roast is? I can tell you what a spit roast is.
The most normal conversation that you had, but it's crazy, was the one guy that was like, do you want to smoke, what was it? Clouds?
He said, yeah, do you smoke clouds or weed? And I said, sir, I smoke nothing. And then he was like, oh, that's good. Because I think he said something, that's good. I just smoke weed or whatever. And then I gave my phone to Vinny again. And Vinny said, you can come smoke this dick though. And then the guy was like, word. And then he got really excited and he started saying wild things after that. So like basically I can't say that's a small comment because you can come smoke this dick is a wild thing to say.
Yeah, it is a wild thing to say.
Once Vinny said that as me, the guy like activated, I guess, and then he just became a regular North Carolinian. Like he just became a part of the problem. Regular. He just became like everyone else. He started saying the wildest shit after that.
Can I just say, I don't know what the fuck are clouds. I
didn't know what that meant either. I actually said, I was like, I'm not really sure what he meant by that. Like the whole, do you smoke clouds or do you smoke
I guess he meant like
that's the same thing,
weed, right?
I don't know.
Why would cigarettes be called clouds?
Because it's white. I don't know.
Maybe clouds are vaping.
Yeah, I literally had no idea what the hell he was talking about, and I just kind of let my friends have fun with it because everybody at the dinner table just kind of passed my phone around.
That's awesome.
We all just laughed at it because every conversation was unhinged. I was like, just go to the inbox, like just look at my inbox. I would have
loved to respond to those messages.
Yeah, you and Vinny would have had a ball. He responded all night for like 3 or 4 hours.
We've been workshopping shit together.
Yeah, the stuff he said was outrageous. But the thing is, here's what was really disturbing to me. For everything
what they said was more outrageous.
Right. For everything that Vinny was saying, they were with it. He was saying the wildest shit. And I was thinking to myself, all right, if you're a normal person, you would look at the messages coming from my account and be like, okay, this person's not for real. But they just literally were like, yo, send me your address right now.
Yeah.
Like everything you're saying, you're trying to do to me, like, I shouldn't even say, like piss on you and like all kinds of wild shit. Everything that was said, they were just with it. They were like, yo,
so they get busy
now.
In North Carolina.
Oh, if you're into like
busy.
Pure hedonism, if you just want the absolute Fire Island treatment, like Love Island type shit, North Carolina is with everything. If you have any kink, because we don't kink shame here. We have a podcast. If you had never heard episode 69 of the IMNerd podcast, go listen to episode 69. Okay, it is wild. Busy. I think it's called Hentai in Class. That whole episode is about sex. Like the whole thing is about sex and sex positivity and just, kind of basically saying that we're okay with anything sexual as long as it's between 2 consenting adults. And granted, all of these people were adults. They did have some wild things they would say. And I'm not really opposed. I don't really kink shame people for whatever you're allowed to like whatever you like. Again, 2 consenting adults, it's fine. But the approach, okay? The approach
just had you off, huh?
The approach down there was, to me, and I agree with McCabe because he's the one who really said this, to me, it was scary. Like I was literally afraid of some of the things that people said to me because I felt like I was going to get murdered.
I didn't know if the ladies are like that down there. I might have to go to North Carolina.
That's a good question. I
wonder if that's just the guys.
I kept asking people to check the women there. I was like, how are the women here? And they were like, like I don't even feel like it. Like I'm just
fuck that. That's what that is. That's some scared
that
shit.
That was me.
I did not want to say who it was. But
listen, Frazier was like, Kyra, you got to get on Tinder and see what's out there. I was like, no. I was like, I came down here to focus on Yugioh. I'm not going to talk to any girls. And I was like, plus, just like you, Kenny, how you just cut your hair. I was like, plus, I just cut my hair, so I'm going to be a catfish to everybody.
Right, because he used to have long hair.
But in this example, we're not even going to meet the girls. We're just seeing what the fuck they're going to say.
That's
true. I was curious to know if both sexes were unhinged in North Carolina because the men are straight up ridiculous. Okay, they're absolutely insane down there. I could not believe how absurd. And Philly, it's just not like that. And New York and stuff like that. Like I've been in multiple places, and my dating app starts to go off because it's a proximity based thing. So like where you are, it knows where you are.
Yeah.
And obviously, it shows you people who are in the area. But everyone in North Carolina, in the Raleigh area, I guess, was just on some wild shit.
And I'll say this. This is just completely anecdotal evidence of 2 different southern-based states. But I know they're unhinged in fucking Florida as well.
Okay.
In fucking Florida, when I was in Florida last summer, the amount of shit I saw like the guys do, like I'd be walking down the street or would be going to a club or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there'd be girls. And then guys who just, you know how you can tell if somebody knows somebody?
Right.
Guys who clearly don't know these girls would just like walk up, put their arm around the girls, like grab their fucking titty or like kiss them.
Wild.
Like just walk up and just start touching and grabbing these fucking girls, like hugging them, trying to kiss them and shit. And like, and it's not like one time. I saw it multiple fucking times on different streets, in different clubs, just guys fucking
groping, just full on groping people.
Just full on groping girls they don't know. And just like
girls going wild, which I know is, some of it is filmed actually in the South and stuff like that. But that behavior is also wild. It's, to me, a lot of the things that were said to me just felt like threats as opposed to invitations. I have never in my life wanted to go in the woods and have sex. I know people are into, outside play and stuff like that. And that's fine. Again, I'm not kink shaming you, but when you're in the South and I tell you, like, I'm visiting, I am not from here, I don't know anything around here. If I come to you, it has to be through Uber. And you say, oh, I know a spot in the woods, that is terrifying. And also hilarious for the Uber driver who has to drop me off on the side of the highway and watch me walk into the actual fucking woods in the night. Because remember, hookups tend to happen at nighttime. So just imagine the driver's face. Maybe they're used to it. Maybe that's a North Carolina thing and it wouldn't even be abnormal to them. They're like, oh, have fun. I know what you're about to do. But like, imagine my driver's face when they pull over on the actual side of the road and I just get out, grab my bag, and I just start walking in the trees. Like I just start walking the fucking trees and I disappear.
They'll be like, oh, we dropped off a serial killer.
Yeah. Like it looks unhinged to do that. So,
oh man,
I was more afraid than anything. But everything that Vinny said to these people, every single thing, they were just absolutely like,
down.
Give me your Addy right now, Addy right now. Like I'm with everything you're talking about, Addy right now.
For our Southern listeners, let us know. Like, is the South just wild? Do y'all get busy?
Men are easy in general, right? Like we're all fucking dogs. It's so easy when you're a man.
It's obviously easier for a man to talk to a man.
Yeah,
usually than a man. But that said, like I said, in Florida, the men didn't care. They didn't care. They just walked up and started grabbing the women. They did not care.
Donald Trump. They were just on some Donald Trump shit. All right, real quick, the pivot from that. I want to talk about a couple other things too. So one, shout out to Manamoon / Amanda LaPalm for. I got this sick ass Itachi deck box, right? So this arrived. Unfortunately, it arrived on Friday. Right, it arrived on Friday, and I was already at Nationals when it arrived. So it literally arrived a day too late. No fault to her, obviously. She can't control when things get delivered to my house wherever I live. But yeah, this deck box is absolutely insane. It has Itachi on it.
Fucking gorgeous.
And the inside of it is also crazy. I'm just gonna open it right here for people who are on video. It is Itachi, and this is the inside of the deck box, and it looks absolutely insane.
As far as I know, that style of deck box, what you're holding right there, that is like that design is created. Like I think I could be wrong. Amanda LaPalm created that design.
She
like the way those deck boxes look. Like I'm not talking about the art on it, although I'm pretty sure she did the art as well because she's a phenomenal artist. But like the deck box, like ergonomics of it, that is like her company's design. Like what she created, that was her vision.
Correct. So, she even put out a post very recently saying like, I don't mind people, copying my work or whatever. But please just make sure to give credit where credit is due. Like I'm not trying to like sue people or whatever like that for copying my designs, which are trademarked and patented or whatever. It's more so just, if you're going to
give me credit,
just give me credit. Like that is the one thing as an artist, that shit means the world. She fights for artists. That's like her thing. Yeah. She does not fuck with people who don't fuck with artists, right?
And she deserves all the fucking credit she can. I mean, I think, and she's been doing great art for fucking over a decade now.
Yes, since we've known Amanda LaPalm.
Yeah.
And I've always been a friend of her, met her in person a long time ago. And then we became really cool. And I've always just liked her. I know she has had all kinds of ups and downs throughout life, and I'm so glad to see how successful she's become. I thought that she was always deserving of it. One of those people that you're just like, you are going to go far. I don't care where you're at right now. I know that things can suck at a certain time. We all go through stuff, but I always knew that Amanda LaPalm was going to go very, very fucking far. And her company is insane. They're doing really well. But shout out to her for creating this deck box. So I bought this, right? And I went on the website the other day, or maybe I was scrolling Instagram, and I saw that there is a Kakashi deck box that is coming out anywhere between October to December of this year. And when I went on the website to buy it, because now I'm just like a fiend. Her products are insane. So they
really are.
I went on manamoonart.com, I think it is, like Manamoon. Let me see if that's the Manamoon art. I went on it's just Manamoon. So I went on manamoon.com, and it's called the Chidori deck box or whatever.
Oh, this thing looks wild.
And I saw this and I immediately was like, yo, I need that deck box. I just got the Itachi one, and I ordered the Itachi one like several months ago. And they do take a while to get there, but if you know anything about people who create products from scratch like this, you know it's going to take a while. And she also gives you a disclaimer like this will ship around this time. It's going to take a very long time to get or whatever. So if you're impatient, this is not the thing for you. But I'm a patient person, especially when it comes to high quality. And this is very good quality. So I saw this and I was like, wow, it's sold out. And I was a little heartbroken. So this morning I reached out to her and she said, don't worry about it. I'm sending you one. And I just want to give her the biggest shout out because that is absolutely insane and so kind. I'm so grateful. I told her that that's one of the nicest things that ever happened to me. I really appreciate that. And I definitely want to give a shout out to Man on Moon on the podcast. This is not me just shilling. This is not a paid promotion or anything like that.
No.
I really just appreciate her. You know, we do go way back. And the fact that she just saw my message and decided to give me the deck box for free makes me feel so insane. So I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, I love your work. I always have. And I just wanted to say thank you. I can't say thank you enough. So that's kind of where I wanted to go.
I just want to say just real quick. So I just went through her website. Just looking at it real fast. There's a fucking Zoro one that is absurd looking to me.
Oh, I don't think I've seen that one. Hold on, let me go.
There's a Zoro one that is just so fucking clean looking. And then there's a Vasto Lord Ichigo one that's fucking correct.
Listen, when I saw the Vasto Lord
Ichigo one is absolute fucking correct.
Bro, the what is it, Toon World one? Like the manga thing? The Toon World deck box is also insane. It's like a storage, it's like a whole storage thing, but it's basically it looks like a book. It looks like Toon World as a closed book. It just looks so many of these are nuts. There's one for Komodo Tanjiro, like the thing that he carries Nezuko in. There's a deck box of that where it's like the thing that Nezuko is carried in, there's a deck box of it, which I think is also just so fucking sick.
Some of the hottest fucking deck box. And once again, we are not sponsored. This is just us appreciating a fucking great artist. If you want some fire ass deck boxes,
do you see this All Might one?
Check out Man on Moon. Like this shit is insane.
Kenny, there's a fucking
Hold on, I'm looking for the All Might.
It's called Hero.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Hero Academia. I'm looking for the Zoro one still. Oh, I see it. It's green. It's green. Yeah, I see it. Yo, the Zoro one looks insane. Oh man, and they're not even expensive. They're only
they're really not expensive. They're the same price as like any other like good looking deck box. Like that Vasto Lord Ichigo one is fucking
that one takes it. Like that one literally takes it. It is so good looking. But yeah, she makes some crazy. There's a Zelda one too.
I didn't see the Zelda one.
She Goddess Bow. Oh, I guess it's Zelda, but it's also what's the monster that everyone summons in Modern that has a bow? Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. So
it's Appaloosa, but the art is redone as Zelda. I'm looking at it right now. That is so good.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's Appaloosa's art. Well, that's Appaloosa's pose, but she drew Zelda holding the bow of light.
Oh, that is
like in the Appaloosa pose.
And then that's
like
the Triforce.
Yeah. That is a sick fucking deck box too. Holy shit.
So I say all this to say, again, not paid promotion, not shilling or anything like that. This is literally just our genuine love of her products. If you've never seen any of it or somehow you live under a fucking rock, please check out manamoon.com. She has a lot of amazing products and you have to be on top of it because all of this stuff sells out. Like pretty much everything on here is sold out. The Itachi deck box I have is gone. Like pretty much everything is just gone. So you have to be on top of it if you really want something. But I think that the products are well worth it. I'm holding the Itachi one in my hand right now. The leather feels really nice. Everything about this box is high quality. Also, even down to the dividers. I have these dividers. I'll put them on the camera right now. The dividers are Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingans. Like, look at what I'm holding up. These are literally his Mangekyo Sharingans. It's just like every little detail was considered. And I love stuff like that. It's always the details for me. And this is a very detailed product. So yeah, big fan of this. And I definitely wanted to make sure that I didn't leave this podcast episode without talking about it. So there's that. All right. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is we got to meet a lot of people that we only know from online, from on Discord or from the Edison community and stuff like that. And one of the people is obviously the biggest person in Edison, Keegan, E3 Yugioh. I got to meet him in person for the first time. And I'll say this, I did not expect Keegan to be as pleasant as he was in person, but he is literally one of the nicest people I've met in the entire community. Like literally our interactions were so heartfelt and wholesome that it just made me feel like I made a cool new friend out of nowhere. Like I didn't expect it at all. The weird thing is like we've done content together. I've literally commentated with him, me and Kenny. We commentated his stream when he held RBET 2, I think it was. We commentated, and then he came on IMNerd podcast. We have an episode that goes way back. I think it's in the top 5 episodes we've ever done too. But we go way back. And to see where his channel is right now, he's at over 10,000. So congrats on the 10K. I said this to him in person. I'll say it again. Congrats on the 10K. But we met in person officially, and like immediately just hit it off. He was really fucking cool, really chill person. So it was really a pleasure to meet him, and he was nice enough to give everyone who top 8'd the Konami Ultimate Time Wizard Tournament. We all have our invite to RBET rulers now, which is really fucking dope. So I will be participating in the tournament at the end of the year to see who is like, you know, the best player or whatever after everything's said and done. So that's really cool. The other thing is he's hosting 2 in real life RBETs. One of them is in California next month. I actually just took off of work today I put in my time off today for those events. So I'll be going to the one in California in August, and I'll also be going to the one in Orlando in October. So there's 2.
I'll be there in August as well.
Yep. So we will, Frazier and a True Hero will both be there for the August one in California. Looking forward to that. The one he held recently in California was a smash. And yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I love playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, I'm just fully back into competitive mode, which is really interesting because I'm also a content creator still. So like it's kind of hard to juggle this. Most content creators aren't actually competitive. This is a new age where Joshua Schmidt, Jesse Cotton, Tommy Rowe, me, a True Hero, some of the most competitive players who also do well at events are also just like content creators. And before, in the past, if you know, the content creators were never the competitive players. In fact, we avoided it because it was basically like giving away trade secrets. It's like, why would I help out the community when I could just use whatever information I know, proprietary, and just win the events, top events? But now we're officially just like giving out information that will blatantly help competitors we are competing against. We are actively competing against people who watch our channels. Everyone we played.
It's good that you mentioned that because that brings up a round of the tournament that I lost. So, I mean, obviously I only lost twice the whole event, right?
Right.
I lost the same round as Frazier, actually, coincidentally, like it was like round 5, round 4, round 5. And then I lost to the winner of the event in grand finals, right? So those were my only 2 losses. And one of the reasons why I lost is because I have been a strong advocate of Deck Devastation Virus. I think that card is cracked. I think that when you resolve it, you're just going to win. And then there's been a lot of like pushback about the card, people saying it's inconsistent or like it's not that great. It doesn't hit a lot of the meta, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, I am up against the mirror match actually. And basically the guy goes Summon Diva, gets Spine Gilman, makes Catastor, sets a back row. He set 2 back rows. So obviously I knew one of those back rows was Deck Devastation Virus. But when in hand, I draw my 6th card, every last single card is deck deviable. They can all be hit.
Which is wild for that deck too.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like I actually drew very poorly. So it's not even just deck heavy. I just drew very poorly.
I was about to say that sounds like a bad hand regardless. So it's kind of a good thing that it happened then and not when your hand is like kind of decent and then it gets deck heavy and it becomes fucking horrible.
Yes. Because
realistically, you probably just lose that game anyway, drawing 0. Like if you draw 0 defense against the Diva Hero deck, you are actually dead.
Yep.
You were dead.
That's right.
So for what it's worth, like you did lose to deck heavy, which again, you've been a big advocate of, but it's also like, thank God it lined up that way and not a game where you were winning or going to win because your hand looked nice. And then your opponent's like deck heavy, take everything. You're like, wow, I was actually about to pop off and now I just lose. So that's one little like silver lining in that.
The main point of why I bring it up is because before we were content creators, this information would have never got out there. No one would have ever like really been on like, oh, play this card in the deck or play that card in the deck. Right. And I think you mentioned it happened to you as well too, right, Frazier?
It did. So my first loss, which was to the winner, it was because he actually kept in Heavy Storm against me. And game 3, I set 2 back row, which I normally don't even do that. So even if you keep it Heavy Storm, it's still not a good idea because I don't normally have more than 1 back row playing frogs, right? You can't use the deck with back row usually. But we were in a very obscure game state where I was trying to resolve Elemental Hero Ocean to grab back Stratos, which would have 100% ended the game if that resolved. I mean, that's pretty much how it goes in general. If Ocean resolves, if Ocean resolves for Stratos specifically, the game is just over. So I was in a situation where I didn't have Treeborn access. And again, there is a 20% chance that you don't have Treeborn access with frogs. There is an 80% chance that you do in the opening 6. So I was playing this game 3 with no Treeborn. But I did have my hero engine. So I was like, okay, this is, it's doable. It's not ideal, but it's doable. So I was going for a resolution of Ocean, and I happened to have 2 back row set because I really didn't want the Ocean to die. And he happened to have the worst possible card in the entire format at that time for me, which was Heavy Storm. Now, normally that card is a card that you side out against frogs, but because I just topped Deck Devastators with the frog deck, and I showed that I was siding traps, and I also did a whole 2 hour and 30-minute video on my entire run. Like, I went through every single round. Me and Stengo went through every single round that I played, and all of the stuff that I was talking about with side decking and just like the traps that I side and why I side them and all this other stuff, right? Again, trade secrets. He kept in Heavy Storm, which is smart in a way because it ended up working out for him. But it's also, it's one of those things that's high variance. Because it's like, yeah, you can keep in Heavy Storm against frog players, but then we might not draw back row because it's not that many. Even when I do side in traps, I still don't have that many in my deck. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that most of them are chainable also. Like, they're not even, like, I side in Compulse and shit like that. So it's not like Dust Tornado. So it's not like there are traps that just kind of sit there. But everything just lined up so perfectly where the Heavy Storm was absolutely devastating. And it's like, I'm not just annoyed that because of me creating content, you knew that you could keep in heavy and get away with it. I'm also annoyed that it actually ended up working out, because if we played that same exact game again 100 times, I bet that in 97 of them, you having Heavy Storm would be to your detriment. It would be to your detriment that you have Heavy Storm, because that deck needs back rows to play against frogs. It cannot beat the frog deck without back row. So it's like most of the time you're going to be Heavy Storming yourself. That is just the reality. But it worked out so well where that was the case. And it's just like, it's annoying, but it's something that I'm getting used to now as a new part of my Yu-Gi-Oh journey that I never had to deal with or consider in the past. I never had to deal with me making a deck, me topping with a deck. People always could copy it before, but they had no idea what the fuck they were doing because you didn't get to literally see me play with it, right? There was no replay to watch. There was no, I wasn't explaining play by play what I'm doing, but that is a thing now. So now you have insight, which nerfs me as a person because everyone is watching my channel. Like, everyone I played in the tournament knew exactly who I was. They all told me either before the match or after the match, hey, big fan, by the way. People sitting next to me said the same thing. Literally every person adjacent to me, like, people will be playing their match. In the middle of their match, like, I'll be ready to walk away because I'm done. Like, I won my match and I'm holding my arm up for the judge. And they'd be like, hey, Frazier, by the way, big fan of your channel. Just wanted to say that before you leave. Like, just, you know, get that out there. Which I love. I love that support. But from a competitive standpoint, it's interesting that I never really considered until now that, like, oh shit, people know more how I think. They know more how I'll play. They know more about my ideas on certain cards. And the same is true with Cairo about the deck devastation thing. Like, people have more insight. Before, I was just a deck list on a screen, right? It would just say Frazier Smith, you'd get a deck list, and that's it. And that honestly is useless. Like, you can take my exact deck card for card, and 9 times out of 10 is not going to do anything for you. If I'm being completely honest.
It's funny, right? We're all nerds here, right? This happened in Dragon Ball Z, right? When Goku and Captain Ginyu switched bodies. It was just
That's a really fucking great analogy.
That is a really good example.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that is, I get exactly what you mean by that. It's like, he took Goku's body and he was like, yeah, that body's insane. I can't wait to use it. And he goes to use Kaioken. And instead of it raising his power level, it just starts dropping. It just starts absolutely dropping. It's like, what the fuck? It doesn't just work like that. It's not just easy to pick up and play this. So yeah. Great analogy, Cairo. And I agree 100%.
And for that reason, I'm happy that Dueling Book Replays does not have the side portion of it, because I feel like all I have left, because I've already explained how I think, why I do the plays that I do. I feel like all I have left is my reasoning behind side decking.
Same.
And like, that's why even when I was doing the deck profile video, I started explaining like what I side out. And then I was like, you know what? These are just the cards I side. And I kind of just left it at that, because like how much more of myself do I have to get?
Right. Like, figure some shit out on your own, right? Like, don't just try to be a straight up clone.
I do love the most consistent question on the IMNerd mythology. Let me get that side deck guide.
Yes. I'm glad that you, obviously, you know that you also upload to the channel and everything, but it's just funny that even you know that the most common question on our channel is, hey, can I get the side deck guide for the frog deck? And it's like, yeah, I could do that, but also, like, I feel like I give everything else, you know, like literally everything else is given. The deck list, the mindset, the games, like, you get everything, right? Side decking is one of those things that I made a side decking guide video. I did go like through how you should be thinking about side decking, because I think that at the end of the day, you do need to develop that skill on your own anyway. People always want a shortcut to everything.
Having a side deck guide can only go so far too, because like side decking is very, very tournament and even game specific. Like,
you are correct.
Sometimes you could play against a Blackwing player, and the next round you might be playing against another Blackwing player. But the way you side against them, even those two players could end up being different in the same tournament.
I agree. Also, it's not always just, follow this guide and victory, right? I actually do things on the fly based on what I saw. So even with a side deck guide, because I do have side deck guides for my decks, even with that, I don't follow them to a T because I have developed a side decking skill. Like I am skillful at side decking. I'm one of the best players who know, I know how to side deck. So I say all that to say, I think that it's more important that you develop the side decking skill in general, as opposed to just copying people's side deck guides and just trying to go off of that. And if you think that that's full of shit, then that's on you. But I do think that there is a genuine need to develop that skill because it needs to be malleable. You need to be able to adapt to change. Otherwise, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot by following a guide when it doesn't make sense to do something at a certain time. Like Kenny said, in certain games, you play against people who have a deck and you're like, okay, he's playing Diva Hero. But did you pay attention to the way his build is built? Because that changes how you should side.
Yep.
I can put Diva Hero side this, but that's not always true. Like naturally against Diva Hero, I want to side Vanity's Fiend, but should I always side Vanity's Fiend? Because certain Diva Hero players now are main decking Snowman Eaters and stuff like that. And is that good now? It was good against the True Heroes build that's much more defenseless. It's not really good against the ones that are being played now, though. So like also, you have to think about that.
Like frogs, right? Like side this against frogs. It's like, well, what variation of frogs?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's so many fucking different ways to play a frog deck. So like, some of them are very different. There's a fucking frog burn deck and a frog hero deck. Like,
for example, the frog build that I'm there's a frog deck that I'm currently on, right? The hero frog deck. I play only 4 monarchs. I play 3 Kais and 1 Ryza. So if you side mask restrict against me, it doesn't really do much. Like, to be honest, it doesn't really do much. And I do have people who side mask and restrict against me, and I kind of just think to myself, that's fine. Like that's not what my deck is actually trying to. I'm not trying to monarch train you anymore. Like that's not the goal of my deck. My deck is actually built in a way more grindy way because I believe in my skill as a player to do more than just bring back Treeborn Frog and sack for Monarch. That is the difference between me and pretty much a lot of the other frog players, is that their intent is get Treeborn Engrave and then sack for Monarch every turn and hopefully win from that. And that is a decent strategy. But I think the strategy that goes a bit further than that is just knowing how to play the game from many different angles and many different ways. And that's why my deck is built with all these like one-ofs and stuff, like the 1 Junk Synchron. Like I built it in a way where I have like 1 Alias, 1 Infernal Prodigy, 1 Malicious Edge, 1 Stratos, 1 Ocean. I added all of these one-ofs like that, 1 E-Call, 1 Road. Like all of these things are that way because I believe in being able to play based on scenarios as opposed to just playing a game plan every single time and trying to follow it cookie cutter through and through. Okay.
I've killed like 3 flies during this podcast. They are fucking attacking me and I'm losing my goddamn mind.
Well, luckily we're closing in on the end. I wanted to give Cairo the room to bring up a topic if you wanted to talk about something. If you wanted to just, whatever you wanted to go into, we could definitely discuss.
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, the main thing that I'm just happy about is that we're all doing it together, like me and you. I'm also happy that I've been seeing a lot of success in the game recently. I'm just, want to thank everyone, right? Like I've said this before. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to watch that video from the YouTube channel, Asian with Cards, right? But actually at the end of that video, I gave you a shout out and Stengo as well, right? And you two have been very influential in my Yu-Gi-Oh career. And even actually my cousin too. And that, I don't really talk about my cousin too much because we often have like falling outs, but like he is one of the main reasons why like I played Yu-Gi-Oh so much back in the day. Like we were the initial 2 like Naruto and Sasuke that like constantly kept grinding and like kept pushing against each other. But so shout outs to him as well. And it's just like I think for anyone, one of the questions that I got from my video that I uploaded recently is like, someone messaged me personally actually, and they're like, how do you overcome the obstacles around you as a player to continue to move on even in your defeat, And I was like, that's like a really good question because a lot of people like they take like a couple losses and then they start to think that, oh, like I'm not good enough or, oh, like, this isn't cut out for me or, whatever, this, that, and the third. And I said, honestly, for me, I just have the drive because I know, I know where I stand and no matter what happens, I'm not going to give up. Right.
Right.
And they're like, well, what happens though, when it's just like, you keep failing? And I'm like, you keep trying, you keep trying and you analyze why you're failing. There's a difference between just keep trying without learning something each time. And there's a difference between like failing and learning from it. I was like, if you keep learning every time you fail, then like you're going to succeed. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So
I agree with that.
I think that's
hardcore.
really-
And to add to that, I'm glad you brought this up. See, this is exactly why I'm glad I gave the room for this, because I almost forgot. But in my defeat in top 4 to Matt, I learned a couple new things about the frog deck. And there are literally 2 scenarios that came up that I wasn't really too privy to. Like I knew of them technically, right? Like I know of them, but they aren't part of the way I think when I'm playing. So I didn't see them really when I was playing, and they could have definitely changed the outcome of both of the games. So in my defeat, I actually feel like I became a better frog player because I now have these 2 new ideas in my head of plays that I can do that are actually quite fucking broken. And I'm actually so interested to try them out soon. But I learned a lot. Basically, I'm saying like I played this event with no playtesting. You can ask Cairo. The whole Friday, I did not play a single game with frogs. I played Dragon Turbo and I was out the tournament very quick because that deck fucking sucks. So I played 0 games with my real deck for the tournament. I played 0 games the entire week of the tournament with my actual deck that I used to get top 4, right? Yep. So and when top 4 for me, so 8-1 is Swiss. So 9-1 top 8. So I was 9-1 before being eliminated. So I went 9-1 with a deck that I know how to play based off of just me being a good player fundamentally, but without actual playtesting. And I do think that I would be a much better player if I actually took the time to grind. Like if I took the time to just play more Yu-Gi-Oh, play more Edison, I think I would be so much more fucking absurd. There's not even close. Like the situations that came up in top 4, I would have known them and they would have actually one of them would have straight up won the game. Okay, one of the things that happened would have literally, it was game that turn and I just straight up didn't see it. And the other one is just like it would have ruined him. I don't know if it would have been game, but it would have been really, really bad after that. Like, and I don't know if he would even saw it come. It would have been really bad. So I learned stuff in my defeat, and the people that I beat, like, sure, there might have been something in there that I might have learned, but like most of the time when you win, it's just kind of like, all right.
It's really hard to go and analyze a win because like you won.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's hard to go and learn from it, even though you probably can. It's hard to learn from a win because it's a win. So you just move on with your day.
Yeah, exactly. I learned way more in defeat. And I think that pretty much everyone should learn in defeat. I don't throw a tantrum when I lose. I just think about what happened, right? So when I lose, I always think, what went wrong? What could I have done differently? And I think that I could have played both of the games in top 4 better. I know exactly what I did. I made the decision, but looking back at it, I'm like, that probably just wasn't the right decision to do. Like and so I think I could have blatantly played better. Me and Cairo had this conversation too during the tournament. He was telling me like, I think I could have done things differently too, for sure. Like we feel like we lost to ourselves at certain points throughout the tournament. And like, that's important that we're able to literally accept that it wasn't just, oh, this guy got lucky. It's his day, blah, blah, blah. This person's so lucky. That's so, like, it's so unfair. Like I got unlucky. Like, no. There are things that we could have done differently at certain points. Not saying that like all of our losses were 100% on us, but it's like, yes. And a lot of times when you lose, especially in Edison, you could have done something different. And that's just
these are literally the exact same points that I spit off in my last video, how to top your tournament. It's just like people are so quick to say, oh, I got sacked. But it's just like when you think about it, you could have done that. You could have done this.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You didn't have to activate that at that moment.
Yep.
You know? And Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a domino effect. Every small decision that you make impacts the outcome of the game. Every small one.
Me and Cairo literally had a small conversation after he lost about Hamster and Raiko and how it was basically something about like if you stop the Hamster from resolving, it was deck devastation virus versus a Hamster. I was like, his opponent got to flip Raiko. And I was like, you didn't want a deck devy before that? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, if it's Hamster, he was like, it's not that bad, right? Because he gets the Hamster and I can just still deck devy. And I was like, that's true. But also, if you do it beforehand and it's Hamster, it leaves a Raiko in his deck. Raiko is a card that he gets three draw phases, right? For deck devy to still be active. If you deck devy while the Hamster's face down, it will make it where he has more cards to draw into that are deck deviable, which in turn basically skips his draw phase, skips his turn in a way. So I was like, to me, I was like, I know you probably don't want to hear. I even said this. I was like, I know you probably don't want to hear this right now, but I do think that little stuff like that matters because I didn't want to be like, because I'm annoying. Cairo knows, Stango knows, Kenny knows, Medina knows, Gary knows. everyone, McCabe, Silverman, everyone who's around me knows the way I am. I am so fucking annoying when it comes to just little tiny things and how I feel like they do matter though. So I'm a stickler for like math. And I was basically just saying, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but to me it is a big deal because that's just how I am. But like having him have an extra card in his deck that if he draws it, it just gets destroyed by deck devi, to me does matter.
Yeah,
and
you're being annoying for a good reason.
Correct. I'm not
like,
being
it's not like you're
for the
just being a prick.
Right. And Cairo was like, you know what? I agree with you. Like, that is a really good point. Like, it does matter that he has more cards to get deck devi because that's why I'm fucking playing the card. I wanted to devastate him.
And I think that's another point that players have a hard time dealing with, but not just in Yu-Gi-Oh! In life in general. Nobody wants to be wrong. You know what I mean?
True.
Nobody wants to be wrong.
True.
And when someone tells you something that like basically that says, hey, you were wrong, people don't accept it. No, I did right. No, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's just like, you have to overcome your ego.
Yep. There you go. Overcome your ego. That's a huge part of growth.
To relate it to just, I like to relate things to fighting game examples. For anybody that's played Street Fighter, I'm sure this has happened to you. And I'm sure you've heard this complaint. There's a lot of times we're playing Street Fighter and a Ken player will just uppercut you. You'll just get Shoryukened. And then you'll hear so many people like, he's so random. Like, oh, I fucking lost, but he's so random. I'm better than him. He's random. And like, you hear so many people complain about like, this guy's random. And I kind of equate that the same with like, oh, he got lucky or he's sacked. If somebody keeps getting lucky against you or they keep being so random against you, maybe you're doing something wrong to put yourself in a position to let him get lucky or let him be random to beat you. Like if you keep putting yourself in a position where he got lucky to beat you, then like you gotta avoid being put in the position where him getting lucky can beat you. Obviously, it's not always going to happen, but if every time you lose, it's because he got lucky, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And to compound your point about people being salty about somebody getting lucky without realizing that, they put themselves in a position to be lucky. And also you're doing something to make it where you also kind of put them in that position too. Like you and your opponent are both doing the same thing when that happens. You guys are both leading to the same result. To compound your point with Kara's point about just like accepting what happens when you are doing something wrong. After my match in top 4, there was a player from my local who was standing behind us and he was like, I'm surprised you didn't do this. And I was like, oh, wow, that actually would have won the game. Like 100%. I was like, you're 100% right. Now, some people, when that happens, because that happens a lot to people in Yu-Gi-Oh, they'll get a critique about something that they could have done or something that they actually did do one way or another, and they will be very, very defensive about it. They will literally, I've had people argue me down, like fucking argue me down. And I've gotten to the point like McCabe doesn't argue with anybody. He will say what the right thing to do was, and the person will get defensive and he will just say, okay, and walk away. I've had people, and I used to be very argumentative when it comes to wanting to be right in certain scenarios. I've grown a lot in my life, not just in Yu-Gi-Oh, but outside of it too, where I'm way more accepting and I check my ego often to just accept that other people can also be correct. You're not always right. You're not always the best, whatever. So as soon as this person said this to me, I turned around, I looked up and I was like, oh, wow, you're 100% correct. The old me might've been like, well, no, because this, and that. And I was thinking this and all this other stuff. Like just give some kind of excuse to be defensive, which a lot of people do as a defense mechanism. They just start saying things. And I'm the kind of person in the past that when people do that, I'll start poking holes in what they say as a defense. I'll be like, well, that doesn't make sense because if he has Gores, then you were going to lose anyway, right? And they're like, yeah, but like then I'm like, well, no, that's the end of it. You thought he had Gores, which doesn't make any sense because if he had Gores, you just lose regardless, right? And so I'll go back and forth with them. But now I'm like, one, for myself, I just accept I was wrong. I did a play that I could have done a play that was way better than what I decided to do, for one. And two, when people want to argue, I'm just like, you got it. Like, that's fine. Like, whatever helps you to cope with your loss, that is completely fine. Like, whatever you got to say to cope, do what you got to do. I used to be that guy too. I get it. He just got lucky. Continue. Like, and that's just the end of that. But yeah, that's Yu-Gi-Oh. It was a great fucking weekend. I got to get top 4 with one of my closest friends that I've known for literally decades now. And traveling again, I was saying this to McCabe as we were sitting in the car. Me and McCabe haven't traveled to a Yu-Gi-Oh event since 2016 together. Okay, it's been since 2023. It's 7 years later. We have not and we topped together at the last YCS we attended. Me and him topped together. That was the Cosmo card of demise deck that he made. We topped together, and that was the last time we ever traveled together for Yu-Gi-Oh. So doing it again this past weekend felt so nostalgic and wholesome, and it seemed like no time had passed in between us. Literally, the way we bantered together, the way we laughed together, the sense of humor that we both have, we get along so well, and it just felt so good to be around him again and to be around the people that I genuinely love in this game. It literally is a family for me, and I said this too, like, the reason why I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I quit for a while and I had a lot of resentment towards the game and just the direction that it took and a lot of people in the community and stuff like that. And now that I'm like completely back to it, my love for it has been reinvigorated really. And I feel like what I forgot is that it's the people that you literally have made friends with along the way, the family that you've made, the people that you've handpicked throughout your life that are now part of your journey that literally make this game feel so good. It's not necessarily sitting down in front of my opponent and winning. That feels great too. But honestly, at the end of the day, you can't win them all. So there has to be more.
Yeah. That's right.
And for me, it's the family.
It's funny because both of you, and even though me and Kenny, we didn't really play much Yu-Gi-Oh together, right? We mostly played fighting games together. How we bonded,
We still met through Yu-Gi-Oh, exactly.
That's exactly what I was getting to. At the end of the day, we met through Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I think we told the story before jokingly about how fucking scared you were when you came to my house for the first time. But if I remember correctly, the first time you came to my house, part of it had to do with I think we were testing a deck or something. I don't remember, but I remember you were playing a deck or testing a deck, and like we dueled like throughout the night up on the fucking rant table.
Yes, the rant table.
even the first time you came over to my house, like it was you. So yeah, I mean, the three people in this room, and then honestly, a lot of our chat rooms, like there's a common thread of Yu-Gi-Oh between a lot of the people we talk to.
Yeah,
you know, on a daily to semi-daily basis.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely something that binds people together. And I appreciate it for even if that's just all it is. For some people, that is actually all it is. And I love watching how happy they are. I actually reposted a picture of a group of people from AU, and it was like 6 or 7 of them. And they all have the same exact token card. So at the Yu-Gi-Oh events, they have a booth where you can do a photo opportunity with you and your friends, and they make you a Yu-Gi-Oh card. And all 6 of them had a card made from years ago. And they were like, the gang.
Awesome.
They all held it out in the picture, and it said the gang's all here. And it's the same exact token going around. Yes. And it's from fucking years ago. And I was like, yo, I literally reposted it, and I was like, this is exactly why I love this game. Like, it's this is what I love about the game, is that people make these relationships, and it's not necessarily about like, oh, we went to nationals to get our world's invite or to win nationals. It's like, yeah, if that happens to one of us, the fucking group will be absolutely unhinged, crazy happy, right? But if that doesn't happen,
North Carolinians.
Yes. But if that doesn't happen, it's also just fine. Like we had a great time, a fantastic time, because we're friends and we're family now. And this is something that it gets harder and harder to do the older we get, but we still find time to do it. And every time we do, at least for me, it feels like we never even left. We never were apart at all.
When I tell you, when I heard that Cairo and Frazier were on opposite sides of the bracket in top 4, I was in my house like anxious.
Yes.
Like I was like at home anxious, like holy shit. Like
speaking of which,
like they could just be in grand final. That'll be so fucking hype.
I was like, it's me and McKay part 2. Speaking of which, that is going to happen eventually. Like me and Cairo will be in the grand finals of an event at some point. I already see it in like my premonition. He's obviously amazing. I'm obviously amazing. It's going to happen, right? All we need, the only real luck that we need is to just be on opposite sides. That's all we need. Once that lines up again, like it's a wrap. So opposite sides of the bracket is gonna happen. It's just gonna happen, and when it does, yeah, you guys are gonna get the grand finals that you all deserve. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed this one. Thank you so much, Cairo, for coming on the podcast. People, if you're listening to this and you still somehow haven't, please subscribe to A True Hero on YouTube. He makes fantastic content. His newest video, I think, is one of the best videos he has, because it literally is how to win in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I agree with all the points he made. I actually was listening to it in the bathroom the other day while he was in my living room. So check that out. Check out his channel. Also, obviously, check out our YouTube channel, IMNerdpodcast. I'm actually going to change the description of my YouTube channel because I was thinking about this. So I'm on A True Heroes right now, and it says coverage of Edison Yu-Gi-Oh! That's like the description of his thing. And ours, this is before we were doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. It just says like 2 nerds, 1 channel. But I also want to add to that like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel, because that's also what it is. So if you're looking for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, check that out. If you're interested in my deck and my run and my thoughts on what just happened. Also check that out. And that's pretty much all I got. Kyle, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, like, just shout outs to everyone at IMNerdpodcast. Shout outs to Friendship once again. And like Frazier said, be on the lookout for Cairo Frazier Grand Finals one day.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, as always, do the things that make you happy, including getting top 8 with one of your close friends and having a great experience at nationals. And yeah, that's all I got.
And getting some strange in North Carolina in the woods.
Into the woods. All right. We will catch you in the next one. Peace out.